Tyrion Lannister always claimed to have been cursed with an abundance of wit in a realm that valued brawn above all else. Yet it was that same wit, sharper than the swords brandished by his family's storied knights, that brought him from the shadows of Casterly Rock into the sun-drenched halls of the Red Keep, where King Robert Baratheon's drunken laughter echoed off the ancient stone walls. It was the first autumn of the new century since Aegon's conquest, and Tyrion found himself summoned to King's Landing not as an idle observer, not merely as the dwarfish curiosity that men whispered about, but as the new hand of the king. The Raven had arrived unexpectedly in the middle of a warm day that had left the waters of the Sunset Sea sparkling like spilled diamonds. The summons, bearing the signature of Robert Baratheon himself, invoked the might of Lord Tywin Lannister's name and demanded Tyrion Lannister's presence at court forthwith. It was a turn of fortune no one, least of all Tyrion, had anticipated. Yet he should have expected the unexpected. The realm was never short of surprises, especially when it involved the games of the great houses. He traveled south in a gilded wheelhouse more suitable for a lady of quality than a half-man, but his father had insisted on displaying the wealth of House Lannister. Gold filigree along the doors, plush red velvet upholstery stitched with the lion sigil, and traveling guards clad in shimmering scale armor all proclaimed the power of the West. The dust on the roads whirled around them, a pale brown cloud that coated the leaves of stunted shrubs and caked the throats of his retinue. The heat did not abate, though it was nearing the end of summer. Tyrion spent his journey tucked behind heavy curtains, a shadow in a lavish traveling palace, reading treatises on the duties of the hand and the labyrinthine laws of the Seven Kingdoms. He read of coin and council seats, of noble alliances and old feuds, and he found his mind stirring with 1,000 questions that might prepare him for the swirl of secrets and schemes that awaited in the capital. When he finally rolled into King's Landing, the first thing that struck him was not the reek, though it was pungent enough to make him recoil, but the weight of history. The Red Keep loomed high on Aegon's Hill, its ancient stones washed a rusty red under the setting sun. Torchlight flickered along its walls, lanterns stretched down the sloping streets, and men, women, and children alike craned their necks to spy whatever grand personage rolled past. Tyrion saw their eyes widen at the sigil of the Golden Lion, then flick in surprise to the small figure perched at the wheelhouse window. He had long grown accustomed to stares, so he met their curiosity with a faint, knowing grin. Let them gawk. He would give them more to talk about soon enough. A retinue of gold and scarlet-cloaked Lannister guards escorted him to the Red Keep's main gate, where Tyrion climbed out with as much dignity as his stunted legs could manage. He was greeted by Ser Meryn Trant of the King's Guard, stiff as a statue and just as pleasant, who informed him that the king awaited him in the throne room. Tyrion's heart gave a flutter. Despite his confidence, despite the hours spent preparing, he was no fool to the gravity of this moment. The hand of the king was second only to the king himself in matters of law and governance. Men would either bow to him or work to bring him low. Tyrion suspected more would choose the latter. But he forced his back straighter, lifted his chin in that way his father always told him to do, and followed Ser Meryn. The great doors of the throne room opened, revealing the grand hall that had once housed Targaryen dragons, or so the small folk whispered. Stained glass windows flickered with the dying sunlight, and Robert Baratheon sprawled upon the iron throne, one leg thrown carelessly over an armrest. The throne itself remained a disquieting structure, sharp swords fused together in a twisted seat of power. Robert, large and black-haired, was very much the warrior king the realm had once loved. But Tyrion could see the red veins in his nose and cheeks, the broad belly that spoke of too many feasts and barrels of ale, and the half-lidded gaze that marked the king's perpetual indulgences. Yet Robert's voice still boomed as Tyrion approached, echoing off the vaulted ceilings. "Lannister," the king declared with a hearty laugh. "By the gods, you're smaller than I remember, but perhaps that'll keep you out of trouble. Come forward." Tyrion advanced as commanded, his uneven stride causing a faint echo on the polished tiles. He bowed with the flourish he reserved for those who thought his size a joke. "Your Grace, I'm honored by the summons, though I can't help but wonder what the realm has done to deserve a dwarf as hand." Robert snorted. I've wondered the same. But I've had enough of men who think themselves too grand for the job. Your father has a fearsome reputation, and I hear you have the mind to match it, if not the height." Tyrion's smile was a cat's grin. "Height I lack. Wits I have in abundance, if the stories are to be believed. I will do my utmost to serve you and the realm, your grace." "Then do so," Robert said, pushing himself upright with some difficulty. The motion caused his heavy cloak to slip, revealing a broad chest straining against the black doublet embroidered with the Baratheon stag. "We could use a clever man around here. Jon Arryn was a good hand, but he's gone now." The king's face grew momentarily somber. He was too much an upright sort, always trying to pry into affairs that were better left alone. I need a man who can handle the less straightforward aspects of ruling. Tyrion suppressed a quiver. Jon Arryn's death had been sudden, mysterious. That Robert would mention it in such a way set Tyrion's mind churning. But the dwarfish lord only bowed again, lowering his gaze in a gesture of respect. Then I shall handle all matters, straightforward or otherwise. The king's eyes glimmered with something almost like relief. You'll do. Or you'll learn to do. The realm is a viper's nest, Lannister. Some of the snakes wear crowns. Some wear white cloaks. Some smile in your face and hide a blade behind their back. You watch them all, you hear me. His voice rumbled a warning, though it was quickly tempered by a lopsided grin. Now, enough of this. We've a feast tonight in your honor. I'll see you in the hall after I've finished with a few trifles. Off you go. Tyrion bowed one last time and exited the throne room. The hush that followed him felt full of speculation. Courtiers, guards, and various hangers-on stared openly, but he bore it with easy indifference. He suspected half of them already planned how they might ensnare him or cast him down. It was ever the fate of those who rose too high. He straightened his tunic, glimmering with Lannister red, and made his way to the hand's private solar. Each step magnified the echo of his future. He was Tyrion Lannister, newly appointed Hand of the King. And the game was only just beginning. After being conducted through marble corridors lit with torch sconces and gold candelabras, Tyrion was shown into his new quarters. The apartments reserved for the Hand were modest compared to the king's, but they remained grand to a man used to the chilly halls of Casterly Rock. A table carved from oak, replete with fresh parchment and quills, a soft bed with curtains of crimson and gold, a hearth large enough to roast a pig. These would be his domain in King's Landing. He noticed that the windows faced the Blackwater Rush, a restless black streak far below. The city stretched out beyond the walls, a maze of alleyways and wooden rooftops, alive with the flicker of cooking fires and the hustle of thousands who lived beneath the crown. He had not been in the chamber more than 5 minutes when a knock disturbed his solitude. To his amusement, it was Lord Varys, the master of whisperers, who glided in wearing lavender silk and a secretive smile. Varys's plump face shone with an almost childlike delight at Tyrion's appointment, though Tyrion suspected that behind that simpering grin lay an intricate labyrinth of plots. Varys was many things, and an ally could be one of them if properly managed. "My dear Lord Tyrion," Varys said in his soft, airy voice, "welcome, welcome. Might I say, it is quite a rare day that the Red Keep receives so intriguing an appointment. You must be hungry, thirsty, perhaps in need of a companion." His eyebrows danced with mischievous insinuations. Tyrion gave a short laugh. "I suspect you already know my wants, Lord Varys. That is your area of expertise, is it not? Spies scuttling along the walls, collecting secrets like so many ants." Varys pressed his hands together. "I take offense, my lord. I do not command spies. I command little birds. They flutter about, whispering in my ear. I, in turn, share what I learn with those who most need the knowledge." His face turned sympathetic. "I can only imagine how overwhelming this must be for you. The realm is on edge. The king grows restless. Lord Stannis is seething on Dragonstone. Lord Renly has grown influential in the capital. And your good sister, the queen, oh, she presides over court with all the graciousness of a lioness." "Indeed," Tyrion said, pacing across the thick carpet. He allowed himself a brief glance at the hearth, where a fire crackled. "And where do you stand, Lord Varys?" "Oh, I stand where I must, Lord Hand. I serve the realm. And now, so do you." His emphasis on that last phrase was delicate but obvious. "If I may be so bold, I thought you might appreciate some early tidbits that crossed my desk, as they say." Tyrion arched an eyebrow. "I'm all ears. There is a rumor swirling that the crown is in significant debt. I dare say you will be discovering that soon enough in the royal ledgers. Also, the matter of Prince Joffrey's betrothal. Some have whispered about forging alliances with the Riverlands or the Vale. The memory of Lord Arryn is still fresh, you see, and many are uncertain how they feel about House Lannister wielding such influence over the boy." Tyrion suppressed a smirk. "Let them be uncertain. As for the debt, yes, I expected as much. My father has always lamented King Robert's extravagance." Varys nodded as though he had imparted nothing of consequence. "As I said, if you need my help, you know where to find me." He paused, his eyes twinkling with hidden knowledge. "I do so love to be needed. A dryness tugged at Tyrion's throat. "I shall keep that in mind. But do not think for a moment that I will trust you without question, Lord Varys. My father taught me the value of caution, and I have no intention of letting my guard down in the Red Keep." Varys's smile became a touch more genuine. "Splendid. I would expect nothing less from the hand of the king. We shall have such fun, you and I." Then, as quickly as he had arrived, he glided from the room, leaving the faintest scent of exotic perfume in the air. Tyrion stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of his new position press down on him like a dozen suits of armor. The courtesy calls would come next, no doubt. Lord Baelish with his sly grin and well-kept ledger. Grand Maester Pycelle with false courtesy and half-lidded eyes full of an old man's cunning. Ser Barristan Selmy with his unwavering sense of honor. His sister Cersei with her controlling glances and uncertain loyalties. And behind them all, the king, whose roar could rattle these halls, but who was increasingly ruled by wine and indulgence. Tyrion wondered how many nights he would spend sleepless, pacing by the window, his mind racing with plans. Well, let them come. This was what he was born for, perhaps this chance to prove that he was more than the twisted mockery of a man. He took a goblet from the sideboard, poured a splash of Arbor Gold, and drank deeply. Tonight, a feast. Tomorrow, the realm's burdens. He would face them with a steady hand and a cunning mind. Tyrion Lannister, Hand of the King. He tried the title on his tongue. It tasted of ambition and danger all at once. That evening, the royal feast to honor the new hand was everything one would expect of the capital's decadent court. The great hall in the Red Keep swirled with lively music, dancing shadows cast by thousands of candles, and sumptuous dishes spread across trestle tables. Boar drizzled with honey, freshly baked bread shaped like lions and stags, spiced wine, and lemon cakes, all the indulgences King Robert loved so dearly. The king himself sat at the head table, flanked by his queen, Cersei Lannister, and Tyrion. The courtiers milled around, exchanging pleasantries, forging alliances in hushed corners, casting sly glances at the dwarfish hand who shared the dais with the royal family. Robert drank heavily, his face flushed red, roaring with laughter at some bawdy joke told by one of his drinking companions. Occasionally, he would slap Tyrion on the back and exclaim, "Hand of the King, a fine choice. Wait till you see him work, the half-man's got more sense than half the fools out there." Each time, Tyrion inclined his head, forcing a polite smile. His gaze drifted over to Cersei, whose emerald eyes glittered with annoyance at her husband's inebriated boasting. She was radiant in a deep green gown that accentuated her golden hair, and for all her practiced composure, Tyrion recognized the tension in her posture. She hated the spectacle, but she hated even more that she was not fully in command. When Robert lurched away to share a vulgar anecdote with his brother Renly, Tyrion took the opportunity to address the queen quietly. "Dearest sister, you look splendid tonight. One might think the entire court is here just to admire you." She turned her cool gaze upon him. The corners of her mouth curved in a subtle smirk. "You waste honeyed words on me, Tyrion. I know you too well." He mirrored her smirk. "Could it be I'm genuinely pleased to see you? Family is, after all, everything." Cersei's eyes flicked to the king, who was bellowing across the table. "Family, yes. Our father arranged this appointment, didn't he? Your presence here might be a sign that House Lannister is truly at the helm of the realm." Tyrion leaned back, swirling the wine in his cup. "And that troubles you?" A ghost of a sneer appeared on her lips. "Not if you do your duty. Rule wisely, keep the king happy, ensure Prince Joffrey's future is secured. If your wits fail you, well, that would be a shame for all of us." Her voice contained an edge, a subtle threat. Tyrion laughed lightly. "If you fear my wits failing me, sweet sister, then you truly do not know me at all." Before Cersei could retort, a squire approached to refill her wine, and the queen dismissed him with a sharp wave. Across the table, King Robert was insisting that someone fetch his old friend Eddard Stark from the north. "By the gods, Ned would hate this farce," the king roared, pounding a fist on the table. "He's all about honor and duty. He'd want no part of this drunken nonsense." "Ha!" Tyrion noted the faint frown that curved Cersei's lips. It was common knowledge that Robert was close to Lord Eddard Stark, Warden of the North, but also that Cersei and Ned Stark had never trusted each other. The mention of Stark reminded Tyrion of the tensions that had been rising between the Crown and the North. Rumors spoke of restlessness in Winterfell, though none could say precisely why. It was yet another thread in a tapestry that threatened to unravel if tugged too hard. As the night wore on, servants brought out trays of desserts, sugared fruits, and spiced confections that tempted every palate. The music swelled into a lively reel, prompting ladies in shimmering gowns and knights in polished mail to take the floor. The swirl of color and laughter reminded Tyrion of a stage play, each dancer performing a carefully choreographed part. And behind every flourish of a gown, behind every gallant bow, lay alliances, secrets, bargains. Court life in King's Landing was a perpetual dance, the steps known only to a few, with everyone else struggling not to step on toes. Late into the evening, as candles burnt low and drunken courtiers began to stumble out in search of softer pastures, Tyrion found himself accosted by Petyr Baelish. Littlefinger, as some called him, was slender, with sharp features and a smile that seemed affixed to his face. He wore a cloak of silver and gray, and his mocking green eyes scanned Tyrion as though measuring a mark for the taking. "My Lord Hand," Baelish said, clasping his hands together. "You must be positively exhausted with all this merriment. Let me offer you a word of advice from a humble servant of the realm." Tyrion cocked his head. "I'm always eager for counsel, especially from one so seasoned in the ways of King's Landing." Littlefinger gave an elegant bow. "Flattery will get you everywhere, my lord. Here's my advice: do not trust any of us. Varys may pretend to be your friend, Grand Maester Pycelle will drone on about tradition, and I might even find ways to assist you. But in truth, every man here is out for himself. If you try to rely on any single one of us, you'll end up with a knife in your back." Tyrion snorted. "Sound advice, though I suspect you expect me to rely on you alone. How typically cunning of you." "Perhaps," Baelish said with a twinkle in his eye. "But perhaps I truly am concerned for your well-being. We could accomplish much together. The crown's finances are... well, let's say I know where all the gold is buried. If you need coin to grease the right palms or fund certain undertakings, I can make it happen. All for a modest favor, of course." Tyrion studied the man's face, searching for cracks in the facade. "And what is this modest favor?" "Oh, nothing yet." Littlefinger smiled. "Merely keep me in mind when new offices open or new opportunities arise. My ambitions are modest and wholly in service to the realm, I assure you." A mocking grin tugged at Tyrion's mouth. "Of that I have no doubt. Rest assured, I shan't forget your generosity, Lord Baelish. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must see the king to bed. He seems dangerously close to pitching face first into the boar pie." Littlefinger laughed and gave a small bow. "Good luck, Lord Hand. You'll need it." Then he melted away into the thinning crowd, leaving Tyrion alone with his wine and the swirling thoughts in his head. He glanced at the dais. King Robert was indeed swaying precariously, brandishing a goblet at one of his knights. Queen Cersei had already retired, presumably to avoid the spectacle of her husband's drunkenness. Tyrion sighed, set aside his own goblet, and approached the king. A cluster of empty cups lay scattered around the dais. The king blinked blearily at Tyrion. "Ah, there's my hand," he mumbled, belching loudly. "Good man, Tyrion, good man." He tried to stand, nearly falling into Tyrion's arms, and in that precarious moment, Tyrion felt the full heft of the realm's burdens pressing on him. Quite literally. "Come, your grace," Tyrion said as gently as he could, gesturing for a couple of nearby servants to assist. "Let's get you to your chambers." "Aye, that's right. I'll need to rouse a woman or two," Robert leered. "The queen's probably locked her door, the shrew." Tyrion forced a polite expression, motioning for the king's sworn shield to take Robert's other side. "Your grace, we'll see you comfortable." As they half-carried the king out of the hall, Tyrion couldn't help but think, this is the man whose name outshines all others, the warrior who brought down the Targaryens? He might have been great once, but that greatness was well-worn by drink and indulgence. And now it fell to Tyrion, him, the dwarf, the misfit, to hold together a realm teetering on the brink of an uncertain future. He swallowed the bitter taste of irony, letting the king's weight rest on his shoulder as they left the great hall and all its flickering lights behind. The days that followed tested Tyrion's resolve. King Robert, once roused and somewhat sober, turned his attention to a grand hunting expedition in the Kingswood. "We'll take a dozen good men, find a boar, make a real feast of it," he declared. "I'm sick of seeing parchment and hearing about petty lords bickering. I want to feel alive again, with a spear in my hand and a beast's breath on my face." Tyrion, for his part, was left to untangle the crown's finances, an altogether more daunting beast. Seated in the Hans Solar, he pored over ledgers that Peter Baelish supplied. The numbers were staggering and bleak. The crown owed vast sums to House Lannister, the Iron Bank of Bravos, and a host of other lenders. The king's extravagance, combined with decades of war debts and mismanagement, had brought the royal coffers to the brink of ruin. All the while, the king planned expensive tournaments, feasts, and hunts. Tyrion could practically hear his father's disapproving hiss. Tywin Lannister had always believed in maintaining a full treasury. Late one evening, after hours of calculations, Tyrion finally pushed the ledgers aside, exhausted. The glow of the candle made the numbers blur. His reading was interrupted by a knock at the door. He called permission to enter, and a timid young page slipped in, followed by none other than Grand Maester Pycelle. The old man carried himself with carefully feigned fragility, leaning on his staff more for effect than necessity. "My lord Hand," Pycelle began, offering a deferential bow. "I trust you have settled in comfortably?" "As comfortably as one can while swimming in the crown's debts," Tyrion muttered, gesturing to the piles of parchment. "Do have a seat, Grand Maester, unless you prefer to remain stooped." Pycelle lowered himself onto a chair, joints creaking, or at least making a show of it. He folded his hands in his lap. "I come bearing news that may interest you. The king, as you know, sets forth on his hunt within a fortnight. In the meantime, he has tasked me with ensuring that the small council runs smoothly in his absence." Tyrion drummed his fingers on the table. "Yes, I shall preside over the council meetings as Hand. Do you suspect any trouble?" The old man made a show of pondering. "Trouble is an overstatement, I am sure. But I have heard from certain sources that Lord Renly grows restless. He is petitioning the king for more influence, possibly in the Stormlands. Some worry he might overshadow the king's elder brother, Lord Stannis, who remains sullen on Dragonstone. And then there is the matter of Daenerys Targaryen across the Narrow Sea, whispered to be gathering support from Sells-Words and exiles. I only bring this to your attention because knowledge is power." Tyrion regarded the Grand Maester coolly. "Thank you, Pycelle. I am aware of the Targaryen girl. I had heard she wed a Dothraki Khal not long ago. Are these new rumors? Is she truly a threat worth considering? The king's hatred for the Targaryens is well known." Pycelle's whiskers fluttered as he pursed his lips. "In truth, I am uncertain. Such rumors come and go, but it would behoove the realm to keep watch lest the king do something rash." He cleared his throat. "Also, there is another matter, the north. Lord Eddard Stark has been uncommonly quiet since Lord Aaron's passing. Some in the council believe we should send an envoy to Winterfell to reassure him of the crown's good intentions." Tyrion leaned back in his chair. "And how do you propose to reassure the Warden of the North?" Pycelle offered a bland smile. "That is a decision for the hand of the king, is it not?" A flash of annoyance passed through Tyrion. Pycelle's game was obvious, put the responsibility on him, keep his own hands clean. Tyrion considered for a moment. Write to Lord Stark. Invite him to King's Landing on behalf of King Robert, or if he refuses, send an emissary with gifts. The king may want to see him, especially if he's grown bored of the courtiers here. A faint smirk lifted Tyrion's mouth. Let's see if Ned Stark is as honorable as the songs say. He might indeed be the king's friend, or he might be quietly plotting. We shall find out. The Grand Maester bowed his head. An excellent plan, my lord. I will dispatch ravens at once. Then, after a few more pleasantries, he tottered out, leaving Tyrion alone once more. Tyrion sighed, running a hand through his fair hair. So much to manage. Debts, political rivalries, potential Targaryen threats, the North's unease, Robert's growing dissatisfaction. He wanted a moment of respite, perhaps a visit to the city's brothels or a friendly tavern. But he knew better than to leave himself unguarded so soon. The city was a snake pit, and he could not afford to let a single viper sink its fangs into him. He reached for a quill and scratched a few lines on a fresh parchment. Budgets to be cut, payments to be negotiated, alliances to be nurtured. If he was to serve the king faithfully and protect his own interests, he would need to weave a tapestry of deals, bribes, and careful words. Let Robert play the mighty warrior king on his hunts. Let Cersei brood over her illusions of control. Let Baelish and Varys spin their webs. He would be ready always. Tyrion Lannister had once told himself that life was a jape the gods played on men. But as he surveyed the chaos of King's Landing from the vantage of the Hans Solar, he realized the jape might be his to make. When the fortnight arrived for King Robert's great hunt, a boisterous entourage departed the Red Keep. Robert insisted Tyrion accompany him, but Tyrion pleaded pressing matters of state, which was true enough, and also a convenient way to avoid the rigors of a boar hunt. While the king and a retinue of lords, knights, and squires galloped off into the Kingswood, The city fell into a state of uneasy calm. It was as if the inhabitants waited to see how the new hand would govern in the king's absence. The small council convened twice each week, though in truth Tyrion found himself dealing with petty disputes daily. Lord Renly was often absent, busy with tasks that Tyrion suspected had more to do with self-aggrandizement than service to the crown. Varys would drift in from time to time, offering cryptic updates. Pycelle droned on about ancient precedents. Baelish watched everything with a grin that never reached his eyes. And so, Tyrion juggled coin and patience in equal measure. One morning, while Tyrion was breaking his fast on bread and fruit in the hand solar, Bronn, a sellsword he had come to rely on for personal tasks, slipped inside. Bronn was tall, lean, and dressed in worn leathers. His sharp eyes gave him the look of a man who missed nothing, and his crooked smile suggested he was never far from a sardonic remark. "My lord," Bronn said, dispensing with formalities. "There's a group of petitioners waiting outside. They claim they were promised an audience by the hand." Tyrion set down his cup of watered wine, a mild beverage far from his usual taste, but he was trying to keep his wits sharp. "Promised? By whom?" Bronn shrugged. "They said a certain official told them to bring their complaints to you, or they'd have no chance of justice." "Which official?" Tyrion asked. "They wouldn't say, but my guess is someone who wants you neck-deep in the city's problems." Tyrion exhaled. "Well, let them in. No sense hiding from the realm's woes." Moments later, Bronn escorted in a ragtag group of small folk. 2 women and a man, dressed in rough-spun clothes. One woman was plump and middle-aged, the other younger and dressed in tatters. The man had the look of a fisher or dock worker, with broad shoulders and calloused hands. They bowed awkwardly, uncertain how to conduct themselves before the hand of the king. Tyrion offered a reassuring nod. "Speak. What troubles you that requires the hand's attention?" The older woman clutched her shawl. "My lord, it's the gold cloaks. They come to our homes and demand coins we don't have, saying it's taxes, but it's more than we ever paid. If we refuse, they say we're resisting the king's law. Some have been beaten. My son." Her voice choked. Tyrion's brow furrowed. "Who leads these gold cloaks?" "The city watch is supposed to keep order, not extort the small folk." He glanced at Bronn, who watched quietly from the corner. The fisher spoke up. "We don't know their names, my lord, but they wear the black and gold. They claim they were ordered by the new hand." His eyes darted nervously, terrified that Tyrion might confirm or deny it. "We didn't know if it was true, but a neighbor said you was an honest man." Tyrion blinked, anger stirring within him. "No such orders came from me or the king. You have my word. Return to your homes for now, and I will see this matter corrected." He realized that was little consolation if corrupt guards were indeed terrorizing them. "Go to the Sept if you fear for your safety, or gather in numbers. I'll send someone to straighten this out at once." Relief spread over the younger woman's face, but it was tempered by fear. "Thank you, my lord. I pray you do not forget us." When they left, Tyrion turned to Bronn, tapping his finger on the edge of the table. "This stinks of someone trying to undermine me, extorting coin from small folk under the hand's name. Who would dare such a thing?" Bronn cracked his knuckles. "Plenty would dare. Maybe they think you'll be blamed for it or that you'll be too busy to stop them. Could be an enterprising officer in the city watch trying to line his pockets before you clamp down on the treasury." Tyrion stood, pacing. "We need to find out who's behind this. If the small folk believe the new hand is robbing them, my reputation will be ruined before it's made." Bronn gave a casual shrug, though his eyes were focused. "Tell me what you want done." Tyrion paused, then nodded. "Find which watchpost these gold cloaks hail from. Ask around quietly. Then bring me the names of their superiors. I want an example made." Bronn smiled thinly. "An example, is it?" "Yes, a strong one." Tyrion ran a hand through his hair. "I have no intention of letting King's Landing slip into chaos on my watch." As Bronn departed, Tyrion felt that old thrill in his chest, the same sensation he got when he played a clever trick or discovered a hidden truth. The city was rife with corruption, yes, but he had the means to root it out, or at least show that he would not be trifled with. Whoever orchestrated this ploy would learn that the dwarf was not so easily manipulated. The small council meeting that afternoon droned on for over an hour before Tyrion brought up the City Watch extortion scheme. Baelish, Pycelle, Varys, and a representative from the Watch, Ser Jacelyn Bywater, were present. Tyrion noticed the flicker of curiosity in Baelish's eyes when he raised the issue. "Ser Jacelyn," Tyrion said, "the City Watch must be held accountable. I have received complaints of extortion perpetrated under the Watch's colors. Good folk forced to pay taxes that do not exist. I trust you have some knowledge of this." Bywater, a stern-faced knight, inclined his head. "My Lord Hand, if such wrongdoing is happening, I assure you it is without my knowledge. I hold to the oath of keeping the king's peace in the city." "I believe you," Tyrion said, "but we must discover the culprits. Dismiss the guilty, or better yet, string them up in the courtyard. Corruption at this level cannot be tolerated. I will see to it personally if you like." Baelish cleared his throat. "That might be a bit harsh. Perhaps fines or dismissal could suffice." Tyrion leveled a sharp look at him. "If we do not show the small folk that their concerns matter, we risk worse unrest. A few heads on spikes will set an example that I will not abide thieves under the guise of royal authority. These men tarnish the crown's image." Ser Jacelyn nodded, though he looked uneasy. "I will root them out, my Lord Hand. You have my word." Varys's voice rose in his typical soft tone. "My lord, might I suggest we make discreet inquiries first, to ensure we punish only the truly guilty? The small folk might panic if they see swift, bloody reprisals." Tyrion waved a hand. "We will temper justice with clarity. But there must be justice, or the next time a city official wants extra coin, he will demand it without fear. No, these are dangerous times, and we must be decisive." Pycelle stroked his long white beard. "Indeed, wise governance calls for balanced measures, my lord. Harsh enough to deter wrongdoing, but not so harsh as to sow fear of the crown." Tyrion suppressed the urge to roll his eyes. "Thank you for the lecture, Grand Maester." Baelish, leaning back in his seat, changed the subject smoothly. "Speaking of city finances, my lord, the matter of the royal wedding. If Prince Joffrey is to be betrothed soon, the planning will be expensive. Perhaps we should consider negotiations with the Tyrells. Highgarden is wealthy, and a match with Marjorie Tyrell would bolster the crown's coin supply. And the Tyrells have a good claim to influence in the Reach." Tyrion tapped a finger. "A Tyrell match? Interesting. I was under the impression my father wanted to keep Joffrey's betrothal open until we see which alliance best serves us. But yes, the Tyrells are a formidable house, and they could help with the crown's debts." Pycelle coughed. "And the Tyrells would likely demand significant concessions in return. Lands, offices, influence at court." Tyrion's mind whirled. So many alliances to juggle. The Tullus in the Riverlands, the Arryns of the Vale, the Baratheon factions in Storm's End and Dragonstone. "We shall discuss it further once the king returns from his hunt. For now, let us focus on putting our city in order. And on that note, Lord Baelish, kindly provide me with a full accounting of the crown's debts by the next meeting. I want every name, every contract, every interest rate. We cannot rule blindly." Baelish gave a languid bow from his seat. "Your wish is my command, Lord Hand." With that, Tyrion dismissed the council. As they filed out, he could almost feel the tension swirling around him like an invisible cloak. They were all watching him, wondering how the dwarf would handle power. Every step he took would be scrutinized, every decision weighed. Tyrion relished the challenge, but he knew too well the dangers. If he failed, the realm would remember him as the half-man hand, a laughingstock. If he succeeded, he might just leave a mark none would forget. By the time the king returned from his hunt, Tyrion had begun to address the corruption in the City Watch. A half-dozen gold cloaks were arrested, including a sergeant who confessed under threat of torture that a mid-level officer had encouraged them to collect taxes for their own pockets. That officer was swiftly executed in the Red Keep's courtyard, his head displayed as a warning. Tyrion oversaw it personally, swallowing the revulsion he felt for needless bloodshed. Yet the city needed a show of strength. Word spread quickly that the hand did not bluff, and the gold cloaks fell into line with only muttered grumbling. Robert arrived one evening in a clatter of hooves and boisterous laughter, dragging a massive boar behind him. The king had a cut on his forearm, but he wore it proudly like a trophy, insisting that the beast nearly gutted him before he planted his spear. He demanded a feast be prepared at once. Tyrion obliged, but insisted the matter of finances be addressed the next day. Robert, in his mirth, merely shrugged. "Tomorrow then," he said. "Tonight we drink." During that feast, Tyrion observed that Robert was in better spirits than he'd been in months, according to the court gossips. The king relished sharing tales of his prowess in the hunt. In a rare moment of sobriety, Robert pulled Tyrion aside. "I hear you've been tidying up my city," he said, clapping Tyrion on the shoulder. "Heads on spikes, taxes sorted, the small folk quiet. Good work, Lannister. I knew you'd sort out the nonsense." Tyrion inclined his head. "Thank you, your grace, but it's only a start. We must discuss the crown's debts soon." Robert waved a hand. "I will talk, but let me enjoy this boar first." He roared with laughter and returned to the head table, where he regaled his courtiers with hunting stories. Cersei remained silent through most of it, sipping her wine and occasionally glancing at Tyrion with those inscrutable green eyes. Joffrey sat by her side, a haughty look on his young face. The prince was all of 12, with the beginnings of petulant arrogance that might one day flower into something uglier. Tyrion offered the boy a polite nod, which Joffrey barely acknowledged. The memory of the boy's cruelty toward animals and smaller children still lingered in Tyrion's mind. He hoped the boy would grow out of it, but he suspected the opposite. After the feast, Tyrion retreated to his solar, intending to review some final matters before bed. But a visitor awaited him by the hearth. Jaime Lannister, his elder brother, looking like a golden statue come to life in his Kingsguard whites. Tyrion was genuinely surprised to see him. Jaime so seldom sought him out in private. "Tyrion," Jaime said, offering a casual nod. "I thought I'd pay a visit to my newly exalted brother. A man should see how the hand of the king lives." Tyrion motioned for Jaime to sit and poured 2 cups of Arbor Gold. "To what do I owe the pleasure, dear brother? Tiring of your white cloak?" Jaime accepted the cup with a crooked grin. "It has its perks, but you know me, I prefer the rush of battle over standing guard during feasts. The king's hunts are actually a relief sometimes. I can keep my sword arm-honed." Tyrion studied his brother. "So, what business brings you here? Surely not a familial chat about the weather." Jaime's grin faded slightly. "Word around the keep is that you're actually doing a decent job. Even Cersei is grudgingly impressed. But that also puts a target on your back. You must know that." Tyrion exhaled. "I'd be a fool not to, though I'm touched by your concern." Jaime gazed into the fire. "I may not have always been the best brother, Tyrion, but we're still Lannisters. I don't want to see you undone by court intrigues. Keep your eyes open." Tyrion raised an eyebrow. "Speaking as one of the Kingsguard, do you know of any specific plots against me? Or is this just general brotherly advice?" Jaime sipped his wine, shrugged. "Nothing concrete, but you've stepped on toes by executing that officer in the city watch. Some lords grumble that you're quick to shed blood. Others mutter about the crown's debts. They might try to blame you if Robert decides to raise new taxes on the lords to pay them off. The usual nonsense. But nonsense can kill if given enough time." Tyrion allowed a small smile. "I appreciate the warning. A pity you can't guard me personally." A hint of humor flickered in Jaime's green eyes. "I guard the king. That's my duty. But I'll keep my ear to the ground as well. If I hear anything real, you'll know." Tyrion finished his wine, setting the cup aside. "Very well, brother. I thank you. And for what it's worth, I'm glad to have you here, even if we rarely speak. The Red Keep is a lonely place for a man with a twisted spine." Jaime's mask of casual confidence slipped into genuine warmth for a moment. "It needn't be so lonely, Tyrion. You're the hand of the king. Many would offer you their friendship. Just be wary why." He stood then, adjusting the white cloak draped over his shoulders. "I should return to my post. Good night, Lord Hand." When Jaime left, Tyrion sank into the nearest chair and stared at the flickering flames. A swirl of emotions rose in him: gratitude that his brother had visited and offered support, suspicion at the mention of new taxes and the unrest they might bring, and a pang of loneliness that the Lannisters, for all their wealth and power, had never truly formed a loving family. But no matter. He had work to do, secrets to uncover, alliances to forge, debts to settle. Let the day come, he would meet it head-on, armed with wits and the cunning of a man who had never been afforded strength by the gods. If the realm wanted a hand with teeth, they would find one in Tyrion Lannister. The morning sun shone through the solar's windows, illuminating dust motes that drifted lazily in the air. Tyrion surveyed the council assembled before him. Robert sat at the head of the table for once, fresh from his hunt and looking bored already. Cersei stood behind him, serene and unreadable. Peter Baelish, Varys, Grand Maester Pycelle, and Renly Baratheon took their usual places. Tyrion stood on Robert's left, the hand's position. "Right, out with it," Robert said curtly, swallowing a mouthful of ale. "Tyrion's been pestering me about the crown's debts. Let's hear the bad news. And if you can't make it quick, at least make it painless." Baelish cleared his throat and unrolled a parchment. "Your Grace, as Master of Coin, I've compiled a thorough account of the realm's financial obligations. To summarize, we owe roughly 3 million gold dragons to Tywin Lannister and various other lenders within Westeros, a similar sum to the Iron Bank of Bravos, and smaller but still substantial amounts to wealthy Tyroshi and Pentoshi merchants. The total exceeds 6 million. Robert's brow furrowed. 6 million? How in the name of the seven hells did we let it get that high? Silence hung in the air. Then Pycelle offered a meat cough. "Your Grace, wars are expensive, as are the grand tournaments you so graciously sponsor." Tyrion decided to step in. "The crown's revenues do not support its current level of spending. We either reduce expenditures or increase income. The simplest way to increase income is to raise taxes, but that is likely to prove unpopular. Alternatively, we could reduce the frequency of tournaments and feasts, but that might also upset the lords who enjoy such events." Robert grumbled. "So, no matter what I do, someone will be unhappy. Such is the nature of ruling, Your Grace," Tyrion said mildly. "We could negotiate with the Iron Bank for a restructuring of our debt, but the interest would be considerable, and the Iron Bank is not known for leniency." Varys spread his hands. "Your Grace, the realm recovers slowly from the Greyjoy rebellion. Perhaps it is wise to exercise some frugality while we rebuild. A well-timed marriage alliance could also bring in coin. The Tyrell suggestion, for instance." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "Joffrey will be betrothed when I decide. No one else." Renly, who had been uncharacteristically silent, took that moment to speak. "Your Grace, as Master of Laws, I must point out that the chaos in the streets could worsen if we raise taxes. The people will blame the king or the Lannisters. We risk riots." Robert made a dismissive gesture. "Damn the people. They don't understand what it takes to keep a kingdom. Still, perhaps we can be subtle about it." He looked to Tyrion. "You're a cunning one, Lannister. Find a way. Tax the importers or the whorehouses or the alehouses. Whatever you must. Just keep the lords off my back." Tyrion bowed his head. "I will do my best, Your Grace. We'll begin with a small increase on luxury goods. The wealthy will complain, but they can afford it. It should help stem the bleeding in the short term. We can revisit the question of a Tyrell alliance if needed." A grunt escaped Robert. "So be it. Is that all?" Baelish offered a half-smile. "For now, Your Grace." The king waved them off, dismissing the council. As they stood, Tyrion caught Cersei's eye. A brief, tense exchange passed between them before she turned and left without a word. Outside the council chamber, Renly Baratheon approached Tyrion. The younger Baratheon brother was handsome, with a comely face and an easy charm that made him popular at court. "Lord Tyrion, if you have time later, I'd like to discuss a proposal regarding the Stormlands. We have certain issues with bandits that might warrant the crown's involvement." Tyrion nodded politely. "Of course, Lord Renly. Send word to my solar." As Renly departed, Baelish and Varys drifted near, like two conspiratorial phantoms. Varys's voice was gentle. "My Lord Hand, you handle the king deftly, if I might say so. Not many can persuade him to consider taxes of any sort." Baelish smiled thinly. "Indeed, Quite the feat if you need help implementing these new levies in a subtle manner. I can assist. After all, the customs officers are old friends of mine. Tyrion gave them both a measured look. Your offers of help are always appreciated. I shall rely on your expertise. He paused, then added, and now, if you'll excuse me, I have pressing matters to attend to. He parted ways with the two schemers and made his way back to the Hans Solar. Inside, he found Bronn waiting, arms crossed. Well? Tyrion asked, locking the door behind him. Bronn gave a quick shrug. Things have quieted down with the watch, but I've heard talk in the wine sinks of a certain group stirring up trouble in Flea Bottom, claiming the hand is bleeding the city dry. Might be nothing, might be something. Word is they're calling themselves the Sparrow's Flock or some such nonsense. Tyrion winced inwardly. Religion was a potent force in Westeros, and small folk driven by faith could be unpredictable. Take a few men, find out who leads them. I don't want another riot on my hands. Aye, my lord, Bronn said. Anything else? Yes, keep an eye on the Queen's movements. Don't be obvious, but I want to know if she's meeting privately with certain lords. Tyrion trusted his sister as far as he could throw her. She might be family, but her ambitions were her own. Bronn nodded again and left, silent as a cat. Tyrion was alone with his thoughts. The monarchy's precarious finances, the city's restless poor, potential alliances, Robert's declining interest in governance, and the swirling intrigues among the great houses. It was all building to a storm. Tyrion could taste it, like the tang of metal in the air before lightning struck. Time was not on his side, but he would use what he had, forging alliances where possible, bending or breaking opposition as needed. For so long, he had been the family's afterthought. Now, he was the hand of the king, and everyone was forced to acknowledge his position. If the Seven were watching, he hoped they recognized the irony in exalting a dwarf to hold up the realm. He poured himself a small cup of wine, just enough to soothe his nerves, and sank into the chair by the window. Far below, in the labyrinth of King's Landing, the people lived their lives, ignorant of how precariously their fate balanced on a few men's decisions. Tyrion watched the sun glint on the Blackwater, and whispered to himself, "Hold the realm together, Tyrion. That's what you must do." He didn't know if he was speaking to the small folk, the gods, or to himself. Perhaps all three. The sun lingered on the horizon like a distant flame, and in that light, King's Landing looked both beautiful and doomed. Tyrion closed his eyes and let the moment pass. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. He would meet them, wine in hand, wit at the ready. He had no other choice. Weeks passed, and Tyrion worked tirelessly to impose some semblance of order. He quietly introduced new tariffs on luxury goods from the free cities. The effect was immediate annoyance from the wealthy merchants, but it did little to harm the common folk, and it began to fill the crown's coffers, at least marginally. Meanwhile, he kept hearing more about these so-called sparrows in Flea Bottom, led by fanatics who preached that the crown's corruption had angered the Seven. Tyrion sent discreet agents to quell the worst of the rabble-rousing, paying off some local gang leaders to keep the peace. Not the most honorable method, but effective. He also made overtures to House Tyrell with Baelish's assistance. Lord Mace Tyrell responded favorably, albeit with demands for preferment and lavish titles. "We'll see," Tyrion said when Baelish brought him the letter. "If the Tyrells want Joffrey's hand in marriage to Marjorie, they'll need to sweeten the pot. I want gold. A lot of it." Baelish bowed with a smirk. "As you say, my lord Hand, I shall relay your terms." One late afternoon, Tyrion was surprised by a visit from Sansa Stark, the eldest daughter of Lord Eddard Stark. She had arrived in King's Landing as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Cersei, traveling at the Queen's invitation. Sansa entered the Solar timidly, a willowy girl of 11, with auburn hair and bright blue eyes. Her courtesy was impeccable, the result of a lifetime of training. She curtsied deeply. "Lord Hand," she said, voice trembling slightly. "My lady mother asked me to, I have a letter from her. She said it was important, and that I should deliver it to you personally." Tyrion's curiosity piqued. "Your mother, Lady Catelyn Stark, wrote to me?" Sansa nodded, offering a folded parchment sealed with the dire wolf of House Stark. She said it was urgent. That is all I know. She asked if you might read it and then let her know if you would grant a meeting. Tyrion's mind raced. He had not heard from Winterfell since sending his invitation to Lord Stark. He took the parchment, broke the seal, and scanned the contents. The letter was short but loaded with implications. Lord Tyrion Lannister, Hand of the King, I write concerning a matter of great gravity that involves the late Lord Arryn. My lord husband Eddard Stark suspects foul play in Lord Arryn's demise. We seek your assistance in uncovering the truth, for we believe it touches upon the royal family. If you wish to aid us in this matter, please grant me a private audience. I await your reply. Tyrion felt the hairs on his neck prickle. Jon Arryn's death had indeed raised suspicions. Now, it seemed House Stark believed they had uncovered something dangerous. Or perhaps they believed Tyrion might be a neutral party. He folded the letter calmly. Sansa stood there, hands clasped. Lord Hand, is my mother well? She wrote me that she misses me, but I've had no chance to see her. She is nearby in the city, I believe. Tyrion considered how best to respond. Lady Sansa, you must understand that there are many complexities in the capital. I will, of course, do what I can to see you reunited with your mother. He gave a reassuring smile, though he doubted it relieved her. You have my word. I shall look into this immediately. Sansa nodded, curtsied again, and withdrew. Tyrion watched her go, a swirl of thoughts in his mind. If the Starks were investigating Jon Arryn's death, it could unravel secrets that many wanted kept hidden. The last thing Tyrion needed was a scandal that might topple the realm or stoke the king's paranoia. Yet the Starks were honorable sorts. If they had legitimate suspicions, ignoring them could be just as perilous. He penned a quick reply to Lady Catelyn, agreeing to meet in private at a discreet location outside the Red Keep's walls. He didn't trust that the castle wasn't riddled with Varys's little birds and Baelish's watchers. Once done, he summoned Bronn and a loyal guard to deliver the note. The wheels were in motion. A fortnight later, under the pretense of inspecting warehouses near the Mudgate, Tyrion slipped away from his usual retinue and made his way to a small sept by the waterside. The interior was modest, with a single statue of the mother carved from driftwood. The priest was absent, apparently bribed to leave. There, in a candlelit alcove, he found Catelyn Stark, hooded and anxious. She rose as he approached, her gray eyes fierce. Lord Tyrion, thank you for coming. He gave a short bow. Lady Catelyn, I'm intrigued by your letter. You suspect Jon Arryn was murdered? Her lips tightened. My husband does. Lord Eddard is not a man to jump at shadows, but he found certain correspondences in Lord Arryn's effects, references to the seed is strong, which led him to investigate the lineage of the Baratheon children. She paused, swallowing her nerves. He believes Prince Joffrey may not be the king's son. A hush fell between them. Tyrion's mind reeled. This was treasonous talk, dangerous in the extreme. If Joffrey was not Robert's son, that meant House Lannister had orchestrated a massive deception. It would also mean a potential spark for civil war. That's quite a claim, he said carefully. Do you have proof? Catelyn pressed her lips together. Ned has found enough evidence to convince him. He believes Cersei and Jaime Lannister, her cheeks colored with disgust. We think Lord Arryn learned this secret and was killed for it. Tyrion felt the ground shift beneath his feet. He had heard the rumors, the whispered japes about the queen's closeness to her twin. But to actually believe they had birthed children together, it was monstrous. If it were true, the boy seated on the throne as heir was a bastard, invalid under the law. And the consequences of revealing that secret would be catastrophic, especially for House Lannister. He cleared his throat, choosing his words. Lady Catelyn, you must see how dangerous this is. If you are wrong, you risk the wrath of the king, my father, and all the might of the Lannisters. If you are right, then the realm has been deceived, she interrupted. We do not seek war, but Ned can't ignore this. He was Robert's friend. He owes him the truth. Tyrion regarded her steadily. What do you want from me? She hesitated. Your father and siblings cannot be trusted in this matter. But you have a sense of honor as well as cunning, or so my husband believes. If you help us confirm the truth, if you help us reveal it safely, Ned will ensure your role is recognized. The king might forgive you if you come forward first. He realized she spoke as though the king would not blame all Lannisters. But that was an illusion. If this came to light, Robert would be furious, possibly to the point of demanding heads. Cersei's, Jaime's, perhaps Tyrion's by association. Robert Baratheon was not a forgiving man, especially on matters of cuckoldry. Yet ignoring the truth could tear the realm apart later, once rumors inevitably spread. Tyrion's thoughts churned. "Lady Catelyn," he said quietly, "I appreciate your candor. Let me consider the implications. I am Hand of the King, but that does not give me power to act without consequence. If I move against the Queen, I must be certain of the facts and have a plan to prevent the realm from collapsing." She nodded, relief mingling with urgency in her gaze. "Please decide quickly. My daughters are in the city. If war breaks out..." He raised a hand. "I understand. I will do what I can to keep them safe and to uncover the truth. But for now, we must part ways. If anyone suspects this meeting, we are both in danger." She offered a stiff bow. "Thank you, Lord Tyrion." Then she slipped away, leaving Tyrion alone with the flickering candles. Long after she was gone, he remained in the sept, staring at the statue of the mother. The faint smell of salt water mingled with candle wax. If Joffrey was not Robert's son, that changed everything. His sister had lied to the king, to the realm, to their own father. And Jaime, by the gods, Jaime was sworn to protect the king, yet might have fathered the boy who would sit upon the throne. Tyrion's head swam with the enormity of it. The realm was a tinderbox, and this secret was the spark. Tyrion realized that his next steps could decide whether Westeros erupted in bloodshed or not. Did he side with the truth, risking the wrath of his own family? Or did he shield his sister's secrets and condemn the realm to live under a lie? He thought of his father, Tywin Lannister, of Jaime, of Cersei's scorn, of young Joffrey's cruelty, of Robert's boisterous stupidity, of Ned Stark's unyielding honor, and he felt trapped. A single wrong move could seal his fate. Tyrion Lannister, the dwarf, the twisted lion, had been handed a puzzle that might tear the world apart. He felt no glee in solving it, only a resigned sense of duty. He was the Hand of the King, after all, and the king deserved the truth. But the truth might kill them all. At length, he left the sept and returned to the Red Keep under cover of twilight, his cloak pulled tight around him. He had much to think about and precious little time to do it. The Games of Thrones had never been so perilous, and Tyrion was at the center of it, whether he wished it or not. Night settled over King's Landing, warm and humid. The silhouettes of the city's rooftops cut jagged shapes against a star-pricked sky. Tyrion retreated to his chambers, lighting a single candle. He stared at his reflection in a polished metal mirror, disproportionate limbs, mismatched eyes, the face of a man the gods had played a cruel joke upon. Yet within that misshapen skull resided a mind sharp enough to slice through the tangles that bound the realm. If he dared. He poured a goblet of wine, took a long sip. The taste was rich, slightly sour. The events of the day weighed heavily on him, and a grim sense of foreboding filled his chest. Could he betray his own family? Could he stand aside and let the Starks bring forth the truth? What would Tywin Lannister do if he found out Tyrion had aided them? His father's wrath was legendary, cold, and merciless. Yet the alternative was to continue deceiving the king, propping up a false heir. That would be its own brand of treason if discovered. And what of justice? Tyrion had never been one to cling to romantic notions of right and wrong, but he was no monster. If Jon Arryn truly was murdered, if the Lannisters were complicit, that was a crime that defied easy forgiveness. He knew the court was full of watchers. Varys's little birds, Baelish's informants, spies in every corner. Secrecy would be next to impossible. Whatever choice Tyrion made would require cunning and a carefully laid plan. Perhaps he could alert Robert subtly or gather proof first to present the king in private. But if Robert learned of the incest, the king's rage would explode and Cersei might act preemptively, cornered as she would be. A hush enveloped the room, broken only by the hiss of the candle flame. In that hush, Tyrion heard his own heartbeat, steady, determined. He placed the goblet down. The game was upon him, and the stakes were life and death for many. He would play, as he always did, with all the skill he possessed. In the coming days, he would watch, listen, and gather the final scraps of truth. Then, when the time was right, he would decide how to wield that truth, like a knife in the dark or a banner in the sun. Perhaps he would find a path that minimized bloodshed. He prayed, in his own irreverent way, that the gods might spare the realm another war. For now, Tyrion Lannister was the Hand of the King, a dwarf standing tall amidst giants and shadows. He would stand or he wowl. Defall. But if he fell, he would fall laughing, a twisted grin on his lips as he outmaneuvered those who thought him small. Such was the burden of fate he carried into the night as the candle flickered and burned low and distant thunder rolled beyond the walls of King's Landing. In the days following his clandestine meeting with Catelyn Stark, Tyrion moved through the Red Keep with a calm composure that belied his churning thoughts. The knowledge of Joffrey's likely parentage weighed on him like a sack of lead. He found himself scanning every face, every alcove, wondering if someone else was watching, suspecting. Even the walls seemed to stare back at him. King's Landing was nothing if not a nest of listening ears, and Tyrion could almost feel the net drawing tighter each time he lingered too long in a hallway. At the next gathering of the small council, the usual squabbling about coin and petty disputes greeted him. King Robert slouched in his seat, a goblet clutched in one hand and a distracted frown fixed on his face. Cersei stood behind him, regal in a dress the color of deep emerald, her gaze occasionally straying to Tyrion. Varys and Baelish maintained their practiced masks of polite interest. Grand Maester Pycelle droned on about the ephemeral significance of the upcoming harvest, warning of a possibility of poor yields in the more arid parts of the Reach. Tyrion knew well enough that any shortage in the harvest would lead to rising grain prices, which in turn would drive more smallfolk to hunger and resentment. Before the monotony could lull the council into apathy, Tyrion cleared his throat. "Your Grace, if I may direct the council's attention to matters of security, we have identified a group of religious zealots who call themselves the Sparrows. They appear to be feeding on unrest in Flea Bottom and beyond. If we do not act with caution, this undercurrent of discontent might become something uglier." Robert tipped back his goblet and drained it noisily. "Zealots?" He grimaced. "You mean more Septons whining about how I bed too many horse? Ha! A pox on them. They can preach all they like, so long as they don't cause trouble." Pycelle made a show of nodding. "Indeed, Your Grace, religious orders often come and go. The faith of the Seven has its fervent worshippers, but these sorts of splinter groups rarely." Tyrion cut in with more force than usual, his voice crisp. "These are not merely barefoot Septons chanting prayers by the roadside. They claim the crown has forsaken the Seven's guidance. Some go so far as to say the realm is ruled by corruption, a statement that earns them cheers in the poorest corners. Given how precarious the city's mood already is, I advise caution. The City Watch should keep an eye on them, but do so quietly so we don't inflame tensions." Baelish arched an eyebrow. "A deft hand, indeed. None can say House Lannister stomps on the pious. But if they truly speak sedition, how far shall we let it go before we take direct action?" Tyrion felt Robert's gaze flit between them. He knew the king hated such squabbles, yet was forced by the presence of the Hand and Council to at least pretend interest. "We'll watch," Tyrion repeated. "No more and no less. If they cross the line from words to violence, we'll respond swiftly." Robert waved a dismissive hand. "Fine, watch them, flay them if they rebel, do whatever the hell you do best, imp." Next matter. It was always like that with Robert, an immediate desire to push all complexities onto someone else's shoulders. Tyrion took a measured breath. He could not fault Robert's temper, the man was never bred for administration. He was a warrior king grown fat and weary. That weariness was his greatest danger. The moment something truly vexing appeared, he might strike out blindly with a warhammer blow, heedless of the damage to the realm. Afterward, as the council dissolved, Cersei lingered. She approached Tyrion with the fluid grace of a cat, her green eyes impossible to read. "Brother," she said softly, "might we speak in private?" Tyrion felt the tension behind her words. "Certainly, dear sister," he replied, glancing at the departing counselors. Robert had already lumbered off in search of more wine, Pycelle had begun a slow shuffle to his tower, and Baelish and Varys departed through separate doors, each no doubt with an ear to the ground. Tyrion followed Cersei into a side corridor leading to a small antechamber seldom used, the walls hung with dusty old tapestries from the reign of some forgotten Targaryen. A single torch sputtered in its sconce, casting wavering shadows. Cersei turned on him with that half-smile she often wore, which never reached her eyes. "I've heard whispers that you met with someone, unexpected. A certain northern lady." Her tone was mild, but Tyrion recognized the undercurrent of threat. "Ah," Tyrion said, adopting a lightness he did not feel. "Catelyn Stark, you mean?" She wished to speak on matters of her family. He paused, letting that sentence carry a benign ring. "It's hardly surprising, given that her eldest daughter is here." Cersei's jaw tightened. "And what did the Lady of Winterfell want with you?" Tyrion shrugged. She expressed concerns about some old secrets involving the late Jon Arryn. A trifling matter of genealogies and inheritance lines. "Nothing worth your worry, sweet sister." Her gaze sharpened. "You would do well to remember who truly governs this realm. I am the queen and mother to the king's children. If Lady Stark seeks to sow discord, perhaps you should discourage her." The emphasis on mother to the king's children was not lost on Tyrion. He regarded her steadily. "I take all matters of the crown seriously, as is my duty. If Lady Stark has some foolish notion, I'll address it." A faint flush rose along Cersei's cheeks, though she kept her composure. "See that you do." For your own sake, do not entangle yourself with the Starks. That family knows nothing of how the game is played in King's Landing. They will ruin themselves and anyone who stands too close. He recognized the warning hidden in her words. She was telling him, do not get in our way. With that, she turned sharply, the skirt of her gown whispering against the stone, and left him in the flickering torchlight. Tyrion let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. She was suspicious, and that alone was perilous. If she discovered the extent of Lady Catelyn's claims, the city could erupt in violence overnight. He returned to his solar to think, trying to keep a sense of calm. As the evening deepened, he stared at the ledgers and scrolls on his desk but found himself unable to concentrate on financial minutiae. Instead, he walked to the window looking out over the city. Nightfall draped King's Landing in a veil of amber lights with the moon's glow upon the Blackwater rush. Over the hush of distant voices and wagon wheels, Tyrion heard the faint droning of prayers from a small September. The capital never truly slept, only grew quieter in the darkest hours. He wondered if the voices chanting prayers belonged to the so-called sparrows or if they were simply the ordinary faithful praying for salvation from a world that rarely gave any. He needed counsel from someone he trusted, or at least someone less partial than his sister. Yet that was a scarce commodity. Jaime was loyal to family, but how would he react if confronted with the rumor that his sister's children were his own? Varys offered cunning, but Tyrion did not fully trust the spider. Baelish would only see an opportunity for leverage. And his father, Tywin, was far away in the Westerlands, possibly suspecting that all was not well, but he would not thank Tyrion for exposing the family's darkest secret. For all his public veneer of pride, Tywin would kill or ruin anyone, his own son included, if it meant safeguarding House Lannister's reputation. Tyrion opened his door and quietly called for a page to fetch wine. When it arrived, he drank sparingly, enough to calm his nerves, not dull them. He needed his wits about him. This was too large a problem to solve in a single stroke. With each sip, he contemplated possible outcomes. If Ned Stark confronted Robert with proof of the children's parentage, Robert might turn on Cersei and Jaime. That meant a direct assault on the Lannisters. War would follow. The small council would splinter, the realm would take sides. House Stark and Baratheon on one side, House Lannister and possibly the Reach or the twins on the other. Even House Arryn might have joined the Starks in memory of Jon Arryn. Chaos would devour the Seven Kingdoms. He set the cup aside, mouth dry despite the wine. If he preempted the revelation, if he warned Cersei or Jaime that the Starks had proof, he might avoid the immediate crisis. But then he would be complicit in a lie, the scope of which was staggering. Jon Arryn might have been murdered for discovering it. Could Tyrion stomach that knowledge? He was no stranger to moral compromise, but murdering a Lord Paramount who had served as hand for years was not a trifling matter. If the truth of that murder came to light, the realm would not simply devour Cersei, it might turn on House Lannister in full. And Tyrion would be their puppet, the dwarf who propped up a bastard heir. He spent a restless night, drifting in and out of shallow sleep, haunted by half-formed dreams. By dawn, he resolved to speak with Ned Stark directly. If the man had proof, let Tyrion see it. Perhaps there was still a chance to defuse the situation without an open rift that swallowed the realm. The king, for all his love of wine and war stories, did value Tyrion's counsel thus far. If only Robert could be persuaded to respond with measured reason, not blind fury. But reason was never Robert Baratheon's strong suit. Tyrion gave himself a single, humorless laugh. He was the dwarf in the lion's den, trying to keep a king from smashing all around him, while also warding off the potential betrayal of his own kin. The gods did indeed have a sense of humor. He sent word that morning to Lord Eddard Stark, requesting a private audience in the Tower of the Hand, an unusual invitation to a man who was not part of the small council. He couched it in terms of resolving pressing matters for the good of the realm, hoping Ned Stark would agree. If Ned was as direct and honest as rumored, he might be eager to share what he had discovered. The risk was that Ned might see Tyrion as part of the Lannister conspiracy. Still, it was worth attempting. The note was dispatched by a trusted guard. Later that day, amid the swirl of normal court business, Tyrion dealt with a throng of petitioners. Most were minor lords complaining about farmland disputes or merchants grumbling about the new tariffs on luxury goods. The line in the throne room was painfully long, yet Tyrion endured it, perched on the hand's seat at the foot of the Iron Throne. Robert was nowhere to be found, presumably in his solar with a cask of strong wine or off harassing Lancel Lannister for more drink. The result was a dull parade of pleas, easily handled by generosity here, sternness there. It was nearing midday when, at last, a hush fell among the petitioners. Tyrion glanced up to see Lord Eddard Stark himself striding into the throne room, flanked by 2 guards bearing the direwolf sigil. Ned Stark cut a somber figure, lean, dark of hair, reserved in manner. His eyes were those of a man who had seen war and would rather avoid another. Tyrion signaled for the guards to step aside and bowed his head in polite greeting. "Lord Stark," he said, voice echoing in the hall. "You honor me with your presence." Ned's expression was guarded. "You summoned me, Lord Tyrion, and I came. May we speak privately?" Tyrion signaled a gold cloak. "Clear the hall for a moment. We'll resume audiences soon." The guards grumbled, but they began shepherding out the petitioners and lesser courtiers. Soon, only a handful of guards remained by the great doors, out of earshot if Tyrion kept his voice low. When the crowd had emptied, Tyrion gestured Ned closer. The emptiness of the throne room made their voices carry a faint echo. "Lord Stark, I wish to learn more about the inquiry you and Lady Catelyn have undertaken. The matter of Jon Arryn's death, if you please." Ned stiffened at once. "I have no interest in sharing sensitive information with Lannisters. If you wanted answers, you might ask your sister or brother." Tyrion kept his tone calm. "My sister and my brother are not the hand of the king. I am, and I suspect something foul happened to Jon Arryn. Tell me what you know, and perhaps I can help ensure the truth comes to light. Or, if you prefer, you can attempt to handle this alone and risk a confrontation with the crown's powers." Ned's eyes flicked to the Iron Throne behind Tyrion, that monstrous seat of fused swords. Then he spoke, voice low and clipped. "Jon Arryn discovered the king's children were not his. I found enough to confirm it. Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, they are not of Robert's blood. They're the product of Jaime Lannister's incest with the queen." Tyrion had expected it, yet hearing it so starkly made his skin prickle. He glanced at the empty throne, almost expecting it to hiss with the ghosts of old Targaryen secrets. "Do you have proof beyond hair color and rumor?" Ned lifted his chin. "I have the records of birth from across the Baratheon line, and I've spoken to those who served Lord Arryn in his final days. He was convinced, and so am I. If I present these findings to Robert, I doubt he'll react kindly. But he has the right to know." Tyrion's mouth felt dry. A swirl of conflicting impulses battered his thoughts. He forced himself to speak in a measured tone. "If you bring this to Robert without care, you risk open war. Cersei will defend her children, and the might of House Lannister stands behind her. Is that what you want, my lord?" Ned hesitated, steel in his voice. "I want justice. The realm cannot abide a lie on the throne. Yet, if you reveal the truth, how many thousands die in the ensuing bloodshed?" Tyrion pressed. "Robert will seek Cersei's head. Tywin Lannister will call his banners in her defense. The Starks will call theirs. Others will pick sides. You were at war once with the Targaryens. Do you wish to see another war lay waste to the realm?" Ned's jaw clenched. "What would you have me do? Keep silent while a bastard is named heir to the Iron Throne? While a man was murdered for discovering that secret?" Tyrion exhaled slowly. "No, I merely suggest caution. Let us gather definitive evidence of Jon Arryn's murder. If it ties back to the Queen, or if it ties back to someone else, then we can build a case that even my father cannot ignore." Suspicion flashed in Ned's eyes. "A case that Tywin Lannister will not ignore? He hardly strikes me as a man who would yield if his daughter is threatened." "He might yield if the alternative is total destruction," Tyrion said. "If you can show that Cersei or Jaime acted alone without my father's complicity, Tywin could be convinced to stand aside to protect the rest of House Lannister. My father is not sentimental. He would sacrifice a limb to save the body if that limb is irredeemably poisoned." Ned fell silent, perhaps realizing the cold logic in that statement. "We would need proof they acted alone," he said at last, sounding resigned. "Precisely," Tyrion replied. "So let us uncover that proof. In the meantime, remain cautious. If Cersei suspects you know too much, she may strike first. A cornered lioness is the most dangerous creature in the jungle." Ned's gaze flickered toward the exit. "What of Robert? You claim to be hand, yet you keep the secret from the king." Tyrion nodded grimly. "Robert might kill you in a fit of rage once he learns you suspected his children were bastards and kept silent. Or he might kill my sister. Or both. We should tread carefully. If you trust me at all, Lord Stark, trust me in this. Let us gather more evidence about Lord Aaron's death. If he was indeed murdered for what he knew, that is the surest path to exposing the truth and the conspirators." Silence reigned for a moment in the vast throne room. The throne loomed behind Tyrion like a silent judge. At last, Ned Stark gave a reluctant nod. "Very well. I will bide my time a short while longer. But if you betray me in this, if you warn your sister, then by the old gods and the new, I will see you pay." Tyrion inclined his head, acknowledging the threat. "Understood." Ned made to leave, pausing briefly to glance once more at the Iron Throne. Then, with a sweep of his cloak, he strode out. Tyrion stood there for a moment, alone with the heavy hush of a secret that could topple kings. He signaled for the gold cloaks to open the doors and allow the waiting petitioners back in. Another day's business resumed as though nothing momentous had just occurred. That evening, after the city's bustle had quieted, Tyrion found himself in the Hand Solar, reading through the final pages of Jon Arryn's personal ledgers. He had acquired them through a labyrinth of Baelish's contacts, paying some questionable bribes. The ledgers contained a record of Arryn's finances, but also notes on genealogies, handwritten lines about hair color and family traits, the same details Ned Stark alluded to. Tyrion studied them, heart-pounding. It all pointed in the same direction. Joffrey's features matched none of Robert's ancestors but did align disturbingly well with Lannister traits. Golden hair, for one, though the official court line always insisted the boy took after his mother. As he pored over these details, Bronn entered. The Sellsword's demeanor was as casual as ever, but Tyrion spotted tension in his posture. Bronn shut the door behind him. "My lord, I found the rabble-rousers you asked about. The ones behind those sparrows stirring up Flea Bottom. Seems they're feeding the poor, praying over them, saying the time has come for a cleansing. Word is, they speak of the king's court as an abomination of sin." Tyrion pinched the bridge of his nose. "Another problem. Are they armed?" Bronn shrugged. "A few are, but poorly. The Watch isn't too worried unless they riot. But men with nothing to lose can be dangerous when they think they have the gods on their side." Tyrion closed Jon Arryn's ledger. "Keep close tabs on them. If they look ready to cause real trouble, let me know. I'd prefer not to provoke them, but we can't allow a religious uprising in the city." Bronn scratched his stubble. "One more bit of news. Some of the city's underworld is on edge too. They say there's a rumor the crown is about to raise new taxes on ale or wine or something like that." A weary sigh escaped Tyrion. "It's always something. Yes, I had considered a small levy on taverns, but apparently even rumors spread like wildfire." He paused, thinking. "Let it be known that we're only taxing the more luxurious establishments, not the common alehouses. That should calm some of them." Bronn's crooked grin showed a glimmer of amusement. "If you say so, you'll want to watch your back regardless. Folk might blame you for every coin they lose, even if it's the king who demanded it." Tyrion gazed out the window. "When have I not had to watch my back? Thank you, Bronn. That'll be all for now." The Sellsword nodded and slipped away, leaving Tyrion alone once again with the damning ledger on his desk. His mind returned to the next steps. He had effectively agreed with Ned Stark to seek proof of Jon Arryn's murder. But how to do that without alerting Cersei or Jaime? Varys might know something. The Spider had a network that reached from the Red Keep's kitchen to the slums of Pentos. If Arryn was killed by poison, or if there was some detail in his final days left overlooked, Varys's little birds could unearth it. Tyrion did not relish the idea of revealing his suspicions to the Master of Whisperers, but if he approached carefully, he might glean new leads. The next morning, Tyrion rose early, an unusual habit for him. He summoned Varys to the Hand Solar under the pretext of discussing the city's growing devout movements. Varys arrived in a swirl of lilac robes, face aglow with a smile that never reached his eyes. Tyrion wasted no time on pleasantries. "Lord Varys," he said, holding up Jon Arryn's ledger. "I came upon some notes of the late hand. They reference certain genealogical inquiries. I'm curious if you can shed light on what Jon Arryn was pursuing before he died. Who he met with, what questions he asked. I trust your birds sang in his time as they do in mine." Varys' simper remained firmly in place. "Oh, Lord Arryn was quite discreet in his final weeks. But indeed I heard whispers. He visited the city armorer, a man who once forged arms for the crown. He also ventured more than once to a brothel in the city's outskirts, though I could never confirm the reason. Odd for a man of his station, but perhaps it was not for the usual pleasures. Tyrion leaned forward. Which brothel, precisely? Varys tapped his fingertips together. A small, discreet establishment off the hook, near the Street of Silk but not on it. I can provide the name, Chataya's or something akin to it. As for the armorer, I believe his shop is in the shadow of the Dragon Pit. Why, my lord, are you diving into the same investigation Jon Arryn so obsessively pursued? Tyrion kept his face impassive. Curiosity. The circumstances of his death remain troubling. If there was anything to glean from his last days, it might affect the realm. Varys tilted his head, studying Tyrion. You suspect murder, do you not? Tyrion felt his pulse quicken. Should I? A small sigh escaped Varys, as though he was weary of dancing around the point. I do not claim to know with certainty, my lord Hand, but men like Jon Arryn do not tend to sicken and die so abruptly without cause, especially not when they are rummaging through secrets that might threaten powerful lords. Tyrion nodded. Secrets like the parentage of the royal children? Varys gave the faintest flutter of eyelashes. Ah, you know that rumor. Indeed, it was common talk among those in certain circles. Lord Arryn visited the armorer who fathered a brood of bastards for the late king. He was comparing traits, so the rumor goes. Then he took interest in a child in a brothel who bore a striking resemblance to Robert, or so the whispers claim. Tyrion's stomach turned. So Ned Stark's lead was correct. Arryn had been collecting living proof that Robert's bastards had black hair and the Baratheon look, while the royal children all had golden locks. Who else knew of these inquiries? Varys's eyes slid away in a look of artful uncertainty. Doubtless Lord Baelish was aware. He has eyes and ears among the brothels. Grand Maester Pycelle might have known. The queen or her brother, if they caught wind, they would have ample reason to act, shall we say, decisively. Tyrion's heart drummed. And how did Jon Arryn die? Was it the tears of Lys or some other poison? Varys spread his hands, palms up. Alas, if I knew for certain, I would say. I suspect poison, yes, but proving it would require speaking to the maesters who tended him in his final hours. Grand Maester Pycelle was among them, as I recall, as well as one other, a younger acolyte who has since disappeared, rumored to have returned to the Citadel. Tyrion felt that was no coincidence. Do you think Pycelle might have knowledge of it? Varys's smile was fleeting. Grand Maester Pycelle has served too many kings to count. He always finds a way to preserve himself. Whether that means turning a blind eye or administering a potion, I cannot say. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice, though they were alone. I will share one tidbit more, my lord. Shortly before Jon Arryn died, Pycelle sent several ravens to Casterly Rock. The contents of those messages remain unknown to me, but it might be worth investigating. That was enough for Tyrion to feel certain. Pycelle was at least complicit in Jon Arryn's demise or in covering its true cause. Tyrion forced a cordial nod, schooling his features. Thank you, Lord Varys. Your candor is appreciated. Varys inclined his head with unctuous humility, always in service to the realm. When he had gone, Tyrion let out a long breath. If Pycelle had been sending messages about Arryn's failing health to Casterly Rock, it might mean Tywin knew of the suspicion. That complicated matters 100-fold. Tywin, for all his relentless pride, would not easily allow a scandal that threatened House Lannister's hold on the Iron Throne. Yet, if the murder was indeed orchestrated by Cersei and Jaime rather than Tywin, their father might see them as liabilities. Would he shield them or sacrifice them? Tyrion remembered a conversation from years past, in the wake of some lesser crisis, when Tywin had told him, "We do what we must for the good of the family." Those words chilled Tyrion now, for they could apply equally to protecting his siblings or casting them aside, depending on which path Tywin deemed more beneficial. If father concluded that Jaime and Cersei had threatened House Lannister's position irreparably, he might wash his hands of them. That would be quite the spectacle, and an equally dangerous moment for Tyrion if he became ensnared. He decided on a new tactic. Before confronting Pycelle directly, he would first confirm the involvement of the younger acolyte who vanished. Perhaps this man had fled to the citadel in Old Town, or perhaps he had hidden somewhere in King's Landing. Either way, Tyrion needed a name. He scribbled a note to Bronn: find the acolyte who served Jon Arryn in his final hours. Offer gold or threats, whatever it took. If the man was out of reach, track his route. Evening fell over the capital like a slow-moving tide, and Tyrion found himself once more sequestered in his solar, reviewing letters and half-eaten plates of roasted capon. He worked alone, so deeply focused he barely registered the flicker of candle flames or the hush of the corridors outside. Amid that hush, footsteps approached, soft, measured steps that came to a halt outside his door. Tyrion tensed, wondering who came at so late an hour. Before he could call out, the door opened, revealing Jaime Lannister in his Kingsguard whites. Tyrion exhaled slowly, relief and anxiety mixing. "Brother, you do seem fond of surprises." Jaime closed the door behind him, eyes scanning the room. "I was on duty in the royal apartments. The king passed out drunk hours ago, and Cersei has retired. I thought I might check on you." A faint smirk touched his lips. "Should I be flattered or concerned that you're always locked away with ledgers and scraps of parchment these days?" Tyrion carefully moved to gather Jon Arryn's ledger off the table, sliding it beneath a folded cloth. "A hand's work is never done, you know. The king might chase boars, but I must chase debts and conspiracies." Jaime raised an eyebrow, stepping closer. "Conspiracies? That's a rather dramatic word, Tyrion." Tyrion measured his response. He had never explicitly confronted Jaime with the rumor about the children. Was it wise to do so now? Yet there was a part of him that wanted to see how his brother would react, to glean whether Jaime suspected Tyrion's knowledge. He let out a deliberate breath. "You must have heard talk in the castle about Jon Arryn's investigations before he died." Jaime's face stilled, though a muscle in his jaw flickered. "I heard he'd been poking around, yes? Doesn't matter now he's dead. Do you know how he died?" Tyrion asked quietly. Jaime shrugged too quickly. "He took ill." Tyrion studied his brother's face. "Is that all?" A flick of annoyance crossed Jaime's features. "What are you implying, Tyrion? That I had something to do with his death?" Tyrion offered a half-shrug. "I only imply that there are rumors. Rumors that Lord Arryn discovered something about the royal children's parentage and that he was silenced." A flash of anger lit Jaime's green eyes. He took a step closer, voice a low hiss. "Watch your tongue, little brother. You dance in dangerous territory." Tyrion forced himself not to flinch. Jaime was a skilled swordsman, taller and stronger by far, but Tyrion also knew Jaime had never truly threatened him physically. At least, not yet. "I speak plainly because the stakes are high. If the rumors are false, then we must put them to rest. If they're true, then we must think of what it means for the realm." Jaime's fists clenched. "Be very careful, Tyrion. For your own sake." Tyrion paused, weighing his words. "I want what's best for the family, Jaime, but I also want to avoid a war that could see us all killed. The truth, if it is the truth, will come out eventually. Ned Stark already pokes around." Jaime's lips twisted, nearly a snarl. "Stark? He's always skulking about in the shadows, thinking he's so honorable. I'd love nothing more than to put that man in his place." He took a moment to master himself, then exhaled. "Leave this alone, Tyrion. Focus on running the city, balancing the treasury, all the things you're good at. The rest is best left buried. And if it won't stay buried?" Tyrion ventured. A trace of regret crossed Jaime's face, though it was gone in a flash. "Then I'll handle it. Let me worry about Cersei, about the boy, about what's at stake. You owe us that much." Tyrion felt a pang of sympathy for his brother. Jaime was caught in a snare of his own making, bound by love, lust, and the weight of a secret that could destroy them both. "You and Cersei have been dear to me in your own ways," Tyrion murmured. "But we both know Father will not spare either of you if he thinks you've doomed the house." Jaime's lips parted as though to retort, but he swallowed whatever words he had. At length, he turned for the door, leaving behind a tense hush. "Stay out of it," he repeated, not looking back. "I'm warning you, Tyrion. You don't know how deep this goes." When the door closed, Tyrion stood motionless, heart pounding. In that heated exchange, he had gleaned all the confirmation he needed. Jaime did not deny the rumors. He simply wanted them silenced. The weight of that truth pressed upon Tyrion more heavily than ever. This was real. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen were Jaime's children, not Robert's. And if Jon Arryn was murdered for learning that truth, the king's wrath upon discovery would be terrible beyond measure. 3 days later, tension hung thick in the Red Keep as King Robert announced a grand feast to celebrate a visiting envoy from Dorne, sent by Prince Dor and Martell. The Martells had not fully forgotten or forgiven the deaths of Elia Martell and her children during the sack of King's Landing. Yet they maintained a wary peace, perhaps out of caution or exhaustion. Tyrion recognized that any slight to the Dornish envoy might spark renewed hostilities on the southern border, and that was the last thing the realm needed. So he mustered his best courtesy, ensuring the feast would be lavish enough to satisfy Robert's sense of grandeur and the Dornish taste for spiced dishes. The great hall was decked in the combined colors of House Martell and the crown, red and gold and orange in vibrant array. The feast began jovially. Servants carried in platters of roasted venison, stuffed grape leaves, spiced honey cakes, flagons of Dornish red wine, and more. King Robert, enthroned at the high table with Cersei to one side and Prince Oberyn Martell to the other, roared with laughter as Oberyn recounted some bawdy joke about Braavosi courtesans. Tyrion sat further down the table, close enough to observe but not so near that Robert would yank him into conversation. He felt the tension behind the scenes. Cersei wore a brittle smile, Joffrey was sullen, and Oberyn kept casting sidelong glances at the Lannisters with a half-smile of his own. Even the courtiers seemed ill at ease, as though expecting some confrontation. Halfway through the feast, Tyrion noticed that Ned Stark was not present, or if he was, he lingered at the margins. That alone was unusual. Robert liked his old friend to be near, especially when exchanging war stories with boisterous knights. Tyrion wondered if Ned was off gathering more proof or perhaps attending to some matter of his daughters. Arya Stark had already earned a reputation for slipping away from the Red Keep at odd hours. Or perhaps Ned was in the library, reading more about Baratheon bloodlines. The thought made Tyrion's stomach twist. In the swirl of wine and music, Baelish found a moment to sidle up beside Tyrion. He wore a subtle grin, his hair meticulously groomed. "My Lord Hand, you appear pensive tonight. The spiced wine not to your liking." Tyrion set down his half-full cup. "I've tasted better. Perhaps the Arbor vintage has spoiled me." Baelish's gaze flicked to the head table, then back to Tyrion. "You must be quite pleased with how you've managed the city. The gold cloaks keep order, the new tariffs fill the coffers, and the king's amusements continue unhindered. All is well, yes?" Tyrion plastered on a thin smile. "As well as can be expected in King's Landing." Baelish leaned in, voice dropping. "Word on the street says Lord Eddard Stark has discovered scandalous truths, and that you've taken an interest. I wonder, do you plan to share such truths with your good father, or with the king?" Tyrion narrowed his gaze. "Lord Baelish, your curiosity is boundless. If you have any facts to share, please do so. Otherwise, enjoy the feast." A twinkle danced in Baelish's eyes. "Oh, I have no facts, only hunches. But I will say this, if you do find yourself needing to arrange certain contingencies, be they discreet loans or swift transportation for important persons, I am at your service for the right price. The moment might come when you must choose between your head and your loyalty. On that day, I'd like you to remember that I can facilitate many solutions." Tyrion recognized the veiled offer. Baelish was positioning himself as a man who could smuggle Tyrion or others out of the city if trouble brewed. Or perhaps he meant something else, a bribe to keep Tyrion quiet. In either case, Tyrion merely responded, "I'll remember," and left it at that. Once Baelish drifted away, Tyrion excused himself from the table and stepped out to the torchlit courtyard for a breath of cooler air. The music from the great hall followed him, muffled through the massive doors. The courtyard was nearly deserted, save for a handful of King's Landing guards patrolling the walls and a few drunken knights relieving themselves by the stables. In that relative stillness, Tyrion's mind churned. If Ned Stark was not present at the feast, he might be meeting with some co-conspirator or verifying more leads. If Ned was about to make his move, Tyrion needed to be ready. He frowned at the notion that the city could erupt into chaos at any moment. Perhaps it was time to force Pycelle into revealing what he knew. If Tyrion could gather enough evidence to show that Cersei and Jaime alone orchestrated Jon Arryn's murder, then he might present that case to Tywin, sidestepping Robert's immediate wrath in the hope that Tywin would realize the realm demanded justice. It was a mad gamble, but the only plan Tyrion could formulate that did not end in universal slaughter. Of course, there was the possibility that Tywin himself had ordered the murder. That would complicate everything beyond salvation. Tyrion's reverie was broken by the sudden appearance of Sandor Clegane, known as the Hound, looming in the courtyard with a torch in hand. His burned face caught the flicker of the flames, casting grotesque shadows. "Enjoying the night, imp?" he asked in a gravelly rasp. Tyrion tried not to bristle at the moniker. "A lovely evening, yes. The king's inside, I take it." Sandor gave a curt nod. "Drinking. Not that he needs more. The Hound's watch is never dull, following that old bull around. Tyrion tried for a polite smile. He had no quarrel with Sandor personally, though he found the man's cynicism a dark mirror of his own. Well, good luck with your watch. I doubt the king will retire anytime soon. Sandor spat. Luck, right? He loped off into the shadows, leaving Tyrion alone again. The torch's glow flickered across the stonework, revealing cracks and ancient mortar. Tyrion drew a breath of the night air, which carried the faint tang of salt from Blackwater Bay. It was time. Ned Stark might be close to making an accusation, one that would shake the realm. Tyrion resolved to question Pycelle immediately, privately, using whatever leverage he could muster. If Pycelle had aided in poisoning Jon Arryn, or at least had knowledge of who did, Tyrion needed that fact laid bare before Ned Stark confronted Robert. If Tyrion succeeded in forging a wedge between Jaime and Cersei's actions and the rest of House Lannister, the realm might survive. If he failed, blood would drench King's Landing. He returned to the feast just long enough to offer polite excuses, claiming urgent matters of state. The king dismissed him with a wave, eyes already glazing from drink. Tyrion slipped away, searching out Pycelle's private chambers. He found the Grand Maester's rooms in the Maester's Tower, an area few visited at night, lined with shelves of dusty scrolls and old potions. A single candlelight glimmered beneath the door. Tyrion rapped softly, then pushed the door open without waiting for a reply. Pycelle sat at a writing desk, quill in hand, eyes widening in mild alarm at the intrusion. He half rose. "My Lord Hand? This is most irregular." Tyrion shut the door behind him, his expression as cold as the deep sea. "Spare me your formalities, Grand Maester. We need to talk." Pycelle's gaze shifted nervously. "Surely it can wait until morning. I was just writing a letter to Casterly Rock, perhaps?" Tyrion said, stepping closer. He spotted a half-written missive on the desk. Though the words were in a cramped script he could not immediately decipher. "You wrote to my father once before, around the time Jon Arryn died. I'd like to know the contents of those messages." Pycelle's mouth opened and closed, as though the old man had suddenly swallowed his tongue. "This is highly improper." Tyrion's voice dropped, lethal in its quietness. "So is murder. So is treason. I want the truth, Pycelle. Was Jon Arryn poisoned? And did you have a hand in it?" The Grand Maester went pale. I attended him when he fell ill, yes. But the man was old, and his health was failing." He took a chill. "I believe he was poisoned," Tyrion said, cutting him off. "I also believe you know exactly who administered it. Speak plainly, or I'll have my men search every corner of your chambers for incriminating letters. Then I'll throw you in a black cell to rot until you're ready to talk." Pycelle sputtered, beads of sweat forming on his brow. "I serve the realm. Everything I've done is in service to the king. I would never. I only." Tyrion slammed a fist on the desk, rattling the inkpot. "I will not ask again, old man." Pycelle drew a shaky breath, glancing at the door as though expecting rescue. None came. At length he sagged in his seat. "Jon Arryn asked too many questions about the royal children. He visited me for research on heredity traits. He confronted the queen, or so I suspect. Soon after, he fell ill. I was summoned. He was beyond saving by the time I arrived." Tyrion fixed Pycelle with a cold stare. "What did you write to my father?" That Jon Arryn might be investigating matters that concerned House Lannister. I offered no details, only that the queen was alarmed. I was duty-bound to inform the Lord of Casterly Rock that his daughter might be in danger of scandal." Tyrion's stomach twisted. So Pycelle had indeed warned Tywin. "And the poison?" Pycelle raised trembling hands. "I did not poison him, I swear, but I recognized the symptoms. Something that made his stomach cramp, his strength ebb. He might have lingered for weeks, but the final blow was a purge he took, claiming it would help him rid his body of sickness. That purge was laced with the final dose, I suspect, but I do not know who administered it. Truly, my lord, Tyrion narrowed his eyes. "You recognized the poison, yet said nothing to Robert." The old man's gaze fell to the floor. "I am loyal to the throne. The king might have punished the queen if I revealed such a suspicion. It would shatter the realm. We only sought to protect the crown." Tyrion believed that Pycelle's primary motive was to protect himself. Still, the admission was damning. So you let Jon Arryn die to keep the queen safe, and possibly my brother as well. Pycelle wet his lips, his face now ashen. I had no choice. My loyalties. Your loyalties lie where it profits you, Tyrion snapped. He grabbed the letter from the desk, scanning it briefly. It seemed to reference shipping times for medicinal herbs, but Tyrion wasn't fooled. There could be hidden codes. If I learn you withheld more information, I'll expose you as a murderer. You'll lose that maester's chain and your head besides. Please, Pycelle stammered. I beg you, my lord Hand. I only did what I thought was necessary. Tyrion's lip curled. Get out of my sight. He turned for the door, stepping into the corridor. Before leaving, he tossed one final remark over his shoulder. If you think of warning Cersei about this conversation, remember I will hear of it, and I won't be merciful next time. Pycelle remained trembling at the desk, his quill rolling across the wooden surface with a faint rattle. As Tyrion strode into the hallway, his heart pounded. He had it now. Confirmation that Jon Arryn was murdered to silence the truth of Joffrey's parentage. The only question was whether it was truly Cersei, Jaime, or both who contrived the deed. Pycelle's confession suggested the queen was certainly involved. Jaime was the question, and Tyrion suspected that if they were willing to kill Jon Arryn, they would kill Ned Stark just as easily. He headed to his own chambers, mind racing. This was the moment to decide. Reveal everything to Ned, show him Pycelle's confession, attempt to present a united front to Robert before Cersei had time to react. But Robert's reaction might be immediate violence. Alternatively, Tyrion could quietly send word to Tywin, appealing to him to neutralize Cersei before the city was torn apart. But that would be a betrayal that might cost Cersei her life. Despite everything, she was his sister. Tyrion halted in a dark corridor, leaning against the wall for support. The flickering torchlight made the shadows dance around him, like ghostly figures urging him in different directions. He could practically hear an unholy chorus of them in his head: betray your family, save the realm; betray the realm, save your family; do nothing, watch the world burn. Each option felt equally damning. He closed his eyes, drawing a shaky breath. He had not asked for this power. He had not asked to be Hand of the King. His father had thrust him here, and now the weight of the realm pressed down on his small frame like an avalanche. The gods truly had a cruel sense of humor. When he opened his eyes again, there was resolve in them. He would try the middle path, the cunning path. He would gather Ned Stark and force him to see that exposing the truth rashly would lead to civil war. Then together, they might confront Robert privately, with Pycelle forced to bear witness to the method of Jon Arryn's murder. If Robert's fury was unstoppable, Tyrion would do what he must to save the innocent, Myrcella and Tommen at least. They were children caught in the sins of their mother. Joffrey was another matter, but if Robert wanted the boy's head, it would be a grim day indeed. The next morning, Tyrion dispatched a secret missive to Ned Stark requesting an urgent meeting in the Godswood, a place the Northerner would find sacred and private. Tyrion marked it with a coded phrase to prove he himself had written it. He prayed to whatever gods might listen that Ned was open to reason. If the man was hellbent on immediate confrontation, the bloodshed would begin within days, maybe hours. With the letter sent, Tyrion went through his day's duties wearing a polite mask. He presided over petty disputes, signed orders for new shipments of grain, and listened to the city's building complaints about the rising cost of bread. But all the while, his thoughts were on the impending confrontation in the Godwood. If Ned arrived, if they came to terms, there was still hope. If Ned refused, or if Cersei caught wind, everything would unravel. Dusk was deepening when Tyrion slipped away, hooded and lightly armored beneath a plain cloak. He carried no torch, relying on the Red Keep's known paths to reach the secluded Godwood. The faint hush of wind through leaves replaced the city's clamor once he entered the walled grove. A small pool reflected the sky, and around it stood the ancient weirwood, its face carved into a somber expression. Ned Stark waited there, dressed in dark brown, a sword belted at his hip. He turned at Tyrion's approach, the old god's white trunk behind him. His face was grim. "You asked me to come. I'm here." Tyrion pulled back his hood. "We have to speak plainly. I've confirmed Jon Arryn was murdered, likely on the Queen's orders. Grand Maester Pycelle as good as confessed to helping cover it up." Ned's jaw tightened. "And the reason? So he wouldn't reveal the children's true parentage. He was investigating them, as you know. I have every reason to believe Cersei orchestrated it." Jaime may have helped or he may not. I have no proof of his role specifically. Ned crossed his arms. Then we have cause to confront Robert immediately. Tyrion raised a hand. Wait, we must do it carefully. Robert's temper is legendary. If you confront him out of the blue, he'll likely kill Cersei or try to. Then Jaime will retaliate, calling the Lannister banners. War begins. Ned's eyes smoldered with righteous anger. What would you have me do? Stand idle while murderers walk free? Not idle, strategic, Tyrion said, forcing calm. We arrange a private audience with the king. You present your evidence, I back you up. We force Pycelle to admit his role. We do this away from Cersei's eyes. If Robert is determined to punish her, we at least have a chance to contain the fallout. We could also petition Tywin for mediation. If he sees that Cersei committed treason independently, he might accept a harsh but contained punishment to spare the rest of House Lannister. Ned ground his teeth, as though the thought of parleying with Tywin Lannister disgusted him. You think Tywin will yield up his daughter? Tywin is a ruthless man, Tyrion said. Ruthless enough to sacrifice her if it means saving the Lannister name. This is the best chance to prevent widespread war. Ned glowered, conflicting emotions warring on his face. Do you have proof enough to convince Robert? He will demand more than hearsay. Between your genealogical evidence, Jon Arryn's ledger, and Pycelle's confession, we have enough, Tyrion said. We corner him together. Robert might be furious, but with both the hand and you speaking, he can't ignore it. Ned let out a heavy sigh. Very well, I'll do it your way. But if you betray me... I know, Tyrion said softly. You'll see me dead. They stood there, the hush of the gods wood enveloping them. The eyes of the weirwood seemed to watch. Tyrion felt a tremor of relief that Ned agreed to caution, though he also knew how quickly best-laid plans could go awry in King's Landing. One hint of this plan in Cersei's ear, and she might flee the city with Joffrey, or worse, attempt to kill them both. They would need stealth and speed. Ned left first, disappearing into the gloom of the Red Keep's grounds. Tyrion lingered a moment, gazing at the weirwood's face. The old gods, the new gods, none had ever shown him much favor. But he allowed himself a small, desperate prayer that when morning came, they might avert a bloodbath. He returned to the keep through a servant's corridor, keeping his hood low. On entering his chambers, he froze at once. Someone was inside. His hearth fire had been lit, though he'd banked it before leaving. Quiet as a cat, Tyrion edged around the furniture, hand drifting toward the small dagger at his belt. Then a figure emerged from the shadows. Varys, hands folded, wearing a soft, almost sad expression. My lord Hand, the spider said gently. Your caution is admirable, but your conversation in the Godswood was seen by more eyes than you know. Fear coiled in Tyrion's gut. You do have a talent for secrets, Lord Varys. Are you going to run to Cersei with news of what you saw? Varys shook his head. I would be a poor master of whisperers if I did not gather every piece of information possible. But I serve the realm, not the queen. I came here to advise you that time is running short. Tyrion suppressed a flash of alarm, maintaining a mask of cool. How do you mean? Varys's voice hushed. A raven came for the queen tonight, from Casterly Rock, with your father's seal. I do not yet know the contents, but Cersei was upset upon reading it, or so my little birds say. She may act, and soon. Tyrion's pulse thundered. Act how? That I cannot say, Varys replied. But I suspect she knows Lord Stark closes in on the truth. She may decide to remove him from the game, and possibly remove you as well, if she thinks you stand against her. Tyrion gripped the back of a chair. We plan to bring Robert the proof tomorrow. If we move faster than Cersei, we might stand a chance. Varys dipped his head. Then I wish you the best of luck, my lord. Do be careful. The Red Keep can be a dangerous place at daybreak. With that, the spider drifted out, leaving Tyrion in the solitude of his chamber, the fire crackling merrily despite the dread closing in. Tomorrow it would happen. The confrontation. Perhaps the realm would be saved, or perhaps it would ignite in flame. Either way, Tyrion Lannister would play his part, a dwarf among lions and wolves, trying to keep the Seven Kingdoms from tearing themselves apart. He stripped off his cloak and armor, eased onto his bed, and closed his eyes. Sleep came fitfully, haunted by images of stags and lions locked in mortal combat, while a wolf howled in the background. Each time he startled awake, the night seemed darker, the dread heavier. Dawn would bring either resolution or catastrophe. He could only pray that his wits and Ned Stark's sense of honor would guide them through the storm. When the first light of sunrise broke over King's Landing, pink and gold across the sky, Tyrion dressed in a plain but dignified doublet of Lannister crimson. He buckled on a short sword, mostly ceremonial, given his limited prowess with the blade, but the weight of it offered some small comfort. Ned Stark had agreed to bring his evidence. Pycelle would be made to speak. They would catch Robert in his solar before he had the chance to vanish behind a wall of courtiers or drown himself in wine. If fortune smiled, the king would listen, however briefly. Tyrion left his chambers to find 2 gold cloaks stationed outside, unusual as he had not ordered them. He frowned. "Who assigned you here?" The senior guard bowed stiffly. "Orders from the queen, my lord Hand. She wished to ensure your protection." Tyrion suppressed a surge of suspicion. Cersei knew. Somehow she must have heard rumors. Still, he forced a genial tone. "How considerate. I shall see the queen shortly." He turned away, hoping they did not suspect him of immediate flight. He could not risk trying to slip out of the Red Keep entirely. He needed to see Ned first. He prayed Ned had come armed with some protective detail of his own. He made his way toward the king's solar, the guards trailing a step behind. His heart thumped wildly in his chest. Every corridor felt too still, every window an invitation for an archer's arrow. But he pressed on. Rounding a corner, he nearly collided with Ned Stark himself, who walked with a small retinue of Northmen. Recognition flitted across the Warden of the North's face, and he gave Tyrion a grim nod. "It's time," Ned said, voice flat. "The king is inside. The door is barred, though. His guards claim he wants no one disturbing him." A cold spike of fear ran up Tyrion's spine. That's not normal. Robert rarely bars his door like that. One of Ned's men hammered a fist on the oaken door, calling for the king to open. No response came, only a muffled sound from within, voices raised, possibly an argument. Tyrion looked to Ned, alarm rising. "We must get in there." Ned nodded. Together, they pushed at the door, ramming it until the bar on the other side cracked. The gold cloaks behind Tyrion joined in, as did Ned's men. On the 4th heave, the door burst open. Inside the solar, a chaotic scene greeted them. Robert Baratheon stood swaying, half-dressed, face contorted with fury, while Queen Cersei cowered behind an overturned table, her gown torn. Jaime Lannister was there too, sword drawn, his expression feral. Several broken goblets and spilled wine created a crimson stain on the rushes. Cersei spun at the sight of Ned and Tyrion, rage twisting her features. "How do you barge in?" Robert roared, brandishing a warhammer that had been mounted on the wall. "They come in when they please. No one bars the door to the king." Tyrion's gaze darted from the hammered candelabras on the floor to Jaime's stance. He realized with a lurch that Robert must have just learned the truth. The king's eyes found Tyrion, and a twisted snarl broke across his bearded face. "You," he spat. "She told me you plotted this, you twisted little wretch. She said you brought Stark in here to speak treason in my ear, to claim my children aren't mine." Tyrion's heart nearly stopped. Cersei had turned the story around. She must have preempted them, sowing doubt in Robert's mind. Now the king was enraged and had no idea whom to trust. Ned took a step forward, steel in his voice. "Your Grace, if you will only listen." "Shut your mouth," Robert bellowed, swinging the hammer in a wild arc that made everyone step back. "My son, not mine? Lies. I'll kill you both if you speak that filth again." Jaime's knuckles whitened on his sword hilt. He seemed torn between lunging at Robert or throwing himself between the king and Cersei. Tyrion raised both hands in a placating gesture. "Your Grace, please, we have proof. We only learned of it ourselves." Cersei's voice rose in a shriek. "Don't listen to them. They want to steal the throne for the Starks. Tyrion has always resented me. He's forging vile lies to tear our family apart." Robert's face was purple with rage, spittle at the corners of his mouth. His attention whipped to Ned, then to Tyrion, back and forth like a maddened bull. "Proof," he hissed. "Show me your proof or I'll tear you limb from limb." Ned Stark reached into his cloak to withdraw a sheaf of papers. "Here," he said, his voice shaking with emotion but also resolve. "The Baratheon line is black of hair. Always. Joffrey is. Don't say it. Robert thundered, his voice raw. He stared at the pages as though they might burn him if he touched them. Tyrion realized the king's fury was built upon deep fear. Robert had spent years ignoring the rumors, ignoring the disquiet in his marriage, ignoring the sullen looks that never matched his own. And now it crashed upon him all at once. Jaime stepped forward, blade gleaming. Your Grace, be wary of what you do next. Rash action now might. Robert turned on him with a roar. Shut your lying mouth, Kingslayer. He hoisted the hammer, aiming it at Jaime's head. Jaime just managed to twist aside, parrying the blow with a squeal of metal. Sparks flew. The solar erupted into chaos. Ned Stark moved to intervene, calling for calm, while Cersei screamed for the guards. Tyrion stood paralyzed, mind spinning. If Robert killed Jaime now, war was certain. If Jaime killed Robert, war was certain. If Cersei incited the guards, war was certain. In a desperate bid, Tyrion yelled at the top of his lungs, Robert, you are king. Act like it. Hear the truth in full before you spill blood. The bellowed words somehow cut through the din. Robert halted, chest heaving, the hammer quivering in his grip. Jaime, breathing heavily, stepped back, but did not lower his sword. Cersei was sobbing, face twisted in fury. Ned Stark clutched the papers in trembling hands, his men poised behind him. In that tense heartbeat of silence, Tyrion plunged on. Jon Arryn died for discovering the truth. If you doubt me, question Grand Maester Pycelle yourself. Tyrion shouted, voice echoing off the walls. He will tell you how Arryn was poisoned when he learned your children's features do not match your line. I did not orchestrate this. Nor did Ned Stark. It was done to hide your wife's incest. Cersei's wail tore the air. You vile dwarf, how dare you? But Robert's face drained of color. The words incest hammered into him. His gaze flicked to Jaime, then to Cersei. Is it true? He rasped. You, my wife, with your brother? She opened her mouth, lips trembling, but no words came. Jaime's sword hand shook. Robert's eyes hardened with the savage light of heartbreak and betrayal. Then, with a thunderous roar, the king lunged for Jaime again, hammer whistling. Jaime's parry was stronger this time, forcing Robert back a step. The king was still drunken from the night before, his balance uneven. For a heartbeat, it seemed Jaime might attempt a killing blow, but Tyrion saw the conflict in Jaime's eyes. Killing Robert Baratheon here would end everything in blood. Perhaps a part of Jaime's old honor, the young man who had once wanted to be a paragon knight, still held him back. Robert swung again, and Jaime blocked once more, their weapons clashing in a cascade of sparks. Cersei scrambled away, screaming for help. Guards burst in from the corridor, some gold cloaks, some Lannister men. Ned's northern guards formed a tight ring, chaos erupting as it became unclear who was loyal to whom. Tyrion shouted, enough. Stop. But his voice was lost in the uproar. He saw a gold cloak raise a spear toward Ned Stark, only to have a Northman slash it aside. Across the room, Jaime feinted to the right and then kicked Robert in the chest, sending the king sprawling onto a table that collapsed beneath his weight. Robert let out a pained grunt, the hammer skittering from his grasp. Before Jaime could move in, Ned Stark thrust himself between them, sword raised. Jaime, stand down, he barked, eyes filled with a furious plea. Don't do this. Jaime's face twisted in torment, sword still raised. Then, with a ragged curse, he drew back, breathing hard. I didn't want, he began, but Robert seized a broken table leg and hurled it at him. Jaime swatted it aside. The king staggered upright, blood trickling from a gash on his temple where he'd struck the wood. Guards, seize them, Robert roared, pointing first at Cersei, then at Jaime. All of them, traitors. Tyrion didn't know who them included in Robert's mind. The gold cloaks hesitated. Jaime's face hardened. Tyrion saw the lines were drawn. Some of the gold cloaks advanced on Jaime uncertainly. Others hovered near Robert, while a cluster of Lannister guards rushed in behind Jaime, creating a standstill. Cersei shrank behind her brother's men, tears streaking her cheeks. Ned Stark lifted his blade, turning to his men. We support the king's command. Jaime Lannister, lay down your sword, in the name of Robert Baratheon. Jaime's response was a bitter laugh. In the name of a drunken oaf who can't even see straight, he leveled his sword at Robert. You want me? Come and take me. Robert, enraged, snatched up his hammer from the floor and charged anew. Jaime met him in a clang of steel. Swords flashed, and Tyrion saw with horror that at any moment, one blow could end the other man. If Robert died, the realm would never forgive the Lannisters. If Jaime died, Tywin would rain fire upon the crown. Ned tried again to intervene, hacking at Jaime's flank. Jaime whirled, parrying Ned's strike even as Robert crashed forward. The entire solar became a storm of flying splinters, upturned furniture, and shouting men. Tyrion ducked aside to avoid being trampled. He glimpsed Cersei making for the doorway, but a gold cloak seized her arm. She shrieked, lashing out. At that exact moment, the door crashed open once more. Another wave of guards, led by none other than Sandor Clegane. The Hound bellowed for order, driving back both gold cloaks and Lannister men with sweeps of his sword. "Enough!" his voice roared, echoing off the walls. "You fools would kill each other in the king's own solar?" Robert's hammer and Jaime's sword locked together, trembling under the force. For a heartbeat, they stared into each other's eyes. Then Jaime shoved Robert back, sending the king stumbling into a half-broken chair. Panting, Jaime stepped away, sword at the ready, but he did not press the attack. Sandor interposed himself, blade held high, eyes glinting. The other guards lowered their weapons, uncertain who to follow. The entire brawl froze in a tableau of battered men and shattered furnishings. Tyrion stumbled forward, seizing the moment. "Your Grace," he gasped, wiping sweat from his brow. "Please listen. This does not have to end in blood." Robert, chest heaving, glowered at Jaime, then at Cersei. "She betrayed me. She gave me children who are not mine. That is the blackest treason under the gods. I have cause to kill her and kill him." He spat, glaring at Ned. "You, Stark, you should have told me the moment you suspected. Are you in league with the imp as well?" Ned lowered his sword, shaking his head. "I came here to tell you, yes. I only delayed to gather proof. I wanted no false accusations." Jaime took a step back, eyes flickering to Cersei. She clung to a guard, tears streaming, face twisted in despair and hate. Sandor Clegane kept a watchful stance, ensuring neither side resumed fighting. The hush throbbed with tension. Tyrion fixed his gaze on Robert. "Your Grace, punish those who wronged you, but do it lawfully. Summon a council of your lords, present the evidence, and let them witness the Queen's treason. If you kill her here, you risk the Lannisters raising all the West against you. The realm will bleed." A silence fell. Robert wiped a bead of blood from his temple, eyes bloodshot with fury. He stared at Tyrion as though weighing the dwarf's words. Then he let out a low growl. "Fine," he muttered, "but she's to be confined. I'll not have her running free to plot more treachery." Ned nodded, motioning his men to step forward. Cersei, seeing them approach, let out a ragged cry. "You cannot do this." "Watch me," Robert barked. "I should kill you now for what you did, but my hand is right. Let the lords see your shame." Jaime whirled towards Cersei, agony in his face. Tyrion saw him struggling with the urge to resist or to fight, but he was outnumbered now. Lannister guards were hopelessly outmatched by the king's men, Ned's Northmen, and the Hound. Jaime clenched his jaw. "You will treat her with respect, or so help me." "You are in no position to make threats," Sandor said coldly, blade still raised. "Arrest them both," Robert commanded, voice like iron. "Take their weapons. Confine them separately. Tomorrow, the small council and the great lords can be assembled to decide their fates." Ned gestured, and his men approached Jaime. Tyrion almost expected Jaime to swing his sword again, but at last, with a tortured look, Jaime threw the weapon down. Gold cloaks closed in on Cersei, gripping her arms. Her emerald eyes blazed with hatred, but there was nowhere to run. Tyrion stood there, heart pounding, as the guards led his sister and brother from the solar, their faces locked in expressions of fury and despair. Robert sank heavily onto a splintered chair, dropping his hammer with a clang. The king looked drained, as though all his strength had poured out in that savage fight. Ned handed the papers of genealogical proof to Robert, who glared at them but did not read further. Tyrion approached, voice soft. "Your Grace." "I am sorry." Robert looked up, tears warring with rage in his eyes. "You Lannisters, you've brought me nothing but misery. And yet you tried to show me the truth. Or so it seems. Gods, what a wretched farce my life has become." Tyrion bowed his head. "It is my duty as hand to serve you and the realm. The truth needed to come out lest we face worse destruction later." Ned spoke, his voice grave. "We must handle this carefully. The children, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, what becomes of them?" A flicker of horror flashed in Robert's eyes. "The children." He seemed to fight back bile. "They are her spawn with him, aren't they?" Ned nodded slowly. It appears so. Robert looked as though he might weep or roar again. Then his shoulders slumped. They are children. I cannot murder them. The realm would recoil at such cruelty. But they have no claim to the throne. They must be disinherited, exiled, something. Gods, I can't think straight. Tyrion let out a slow breath. The crisis was not over. Removing Joffrey from the line of succession would be a scandal that rocked the realm. Some lords loyal to the Lannisters might not accept it. Tywin, upon hearing that both Jaime and Cersei were imprisoned, might march on King's Landing. But at least, for this moment, open bloodshed had been averted. He spoke softly, mindful of the heartbreak in Robert's gaze. We will convene the lords, as you said. We will present the evidence. Let your banners see that you are the wrong party, and let them hear the arguments for how to proceed with Cersei and Jaime. As for the children, we will find a resolution that does not stain your honor. Robert gave a bitter laugh. Honor? I have none left. But if it keeps the realm from erupting, so be it. Slowly, Robert struggled to his feet. Enough. I need wine. He glared at Tyrion and Ned. Summon the council tomorrow. This city will ring with my wrath. As for you, imp, I don't know if I should see you as friend or foe. Gods help me, I don't know anything anymore. With that, the king lurched out of the ruined solar, leaving Ned and Tyrion to stare after him. Sandor and the other guards had cleared out, taking the battered Lannister troops. The place was a wreck of splintered wood and spilled wine. Ned's face was drawn, lines of sorrow etched in his brow. Tyrion turned to him. We've done it, in a manner of speaking. The truth is laid bare. Ned let out a ragged breath. At what cost, I wonder? He gestured at the destroyed furniture, the blood spatters on the floor. Robert hates you now, you realize? Or at least he hates that you are a Lannister. Tyrion managed a weary nod. I know. But perhaps we've bought the realm a chance to avoid a broader war. Perhaps, Ned said, though his tone carried deep uncertainty. We must prepare for Lord Tywin's response. He'll not sit idle while his daughter and son are held prisoner. Tyrion pressed a palm against his aching forehead. We will handle the challenge when it comes. For now, I need a drink. And a new solar, it seems. The king has all but demolished this one. A wry snort escaped Ned, a faint glimmer of humor amid the grimness. A pity we can't share that drink as friends. But we are not. We are only two men who want to save the realm from ruin. Tyrion's shoulders sagged. That might be enough for now. They stood there in the wreckage, the dawn's golden light spilling into the hallway beyond, illuminating the broken shards of a kingdom's illusions. Soon, the entire city would learn what had happened. Gossip would fly on swift wings. Men would choose sides. The future was as murky as the darkest well. Yet Tyrion felt a strange sense of resolve. He had laid bare the greatest secret in Westeros, and though chaos and blood might follow, at least the truth was in the open. Perhaps, just perhaps, they had a chance to navigate the tempest that would break over their heads. With a final look at Ned Stark, Tyrion turned away, stepping out into the corridor. Servants gawked at the ruin behind him, and gold cloaks milled about in confusion. Overhead, the Red Keep's arches soared, ancient stone that had witnessed centuries of strife. Tyrion wondered how the bards would sing of this day when the king discovered the monstrous betrayal in his own bed. No doubt the truth would be twisted a dozen ways. He cast one last glance at the solar where Ned Stark stood among the splinters, silent as a statue. Then Tyrion Lannister, still hand of the king, at least for the moment, walked on, stepping into a storm the likes of which the Seven Kingdoms had never seen. One step at a time, he told himself. One cunning word, one well-chosen bargain, one desperate alliance. That would have to suffice. House Lannister, House Stark, House Baratheon, the fate of the crown itself, none would emerge unchanged from the truth unbound. Outside, the sun rose higher over King's Landing, gilding the rooftops and the spires of the Red Keep as if the city itself shone with new clarity. Tyrion couldn't help but think that the illusions of gold often masked the hidden rot beneath. Yet in that moment, he allowed himself a single, tenuous spark of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, the realm would find a path through the darkness to something resembling peace. And if not peace, then at least a future built on truth rather than lies.